your shield. In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just you, me, and the odds. We stuck together, we two peas in a pod. You dealt a bad hand, I'm there seizing the cards. We'll never be separated till we see in the gods. We've been low together, high forever. Long as we go together, we'll die whenever. Be a light, couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never. And when the world gets a little too hard, wipe your eyes, put away your sorrow. When it's war, I'll be leading the charge, and I'll be still fighting for you tomorrow. Yeah, even with a blindfold or in different time zones, could find my way to you with my eyes closed. There's nothing between us. Go to Mars or Venus, stand in front of every one of them rocks they slinging and be your shield.
Be your shield.
Yeah.
In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you.
I'll defend you
from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah, let's go. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your
You may be facing tribulation, but don't let it get you down. What I'm saying may take patience, but you're gonna make it out. I scratch my own 2 feet to pull you to safety. When the fires are burning, burning like crazy. Carnage, yes, but you won't feel no pain. I will take your place, I will be your shield. I will be your shield. In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you.
I'll defend you
from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah, let's go. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your
Now there ain't nothing to it, go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you I'm wrong, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide wrong. Think that I'm a reconcile bonds, so ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Keeping it true to form 10 L's into a milli though. But they already knew that those farewell to your opinions, know that he is something. This is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they already knew that, y'all. Here we go.
I'ma show you who I am unbreakable. I'ma make you understand. Watch me escape it.
Hello, everybody, and happy June 5th. We are 1/3 of the way through the 2021 season, and Michalis Kamaritas has looked absolutely unstoppable. We'll be watching him closely to see if his success continues or if any new contenders will emerge. Tonight's feature league is a complete change of pace from last month's Speedboat League. Tonight, we enter the world of extended deadline play and are covering the Diplomacy World Cup. Sit down, grab a beverage of your choice, join us in chat for some diplomacy smack talk. It's time for League Night. My name is Brian Pravel, one of the co-founders of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network. I'll be hosting your analysts tonight. I have the honor of introducing them to you now. We're surprised that his head still fits in our virtual studio after his big win last weekend. Let's welcome to the stream, Karthik Koneth. Welcome,
Thanks,
Karthik.
Brian. Happy to be here.
And some call him the mass bomb of the Midwest. It's veteran face-to-face player and one of the leaders of Chicago's Windy City Weasels Diplomacy Club, Kevin O'Kelly. Welcome, Kevin.
Should I take that as a compliment, Brian?
This year, I think it's a compliment.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Thank you both for joining me in the studio tonight. We got a good show tonight. We're really looking forward to it. First, before we get started, though, we've had a ton of diplomacy action recently, and there's a ton of ways that we can get started and players can play. So let's take a look at those now. Bring up our calendar of events. So, first up, let's take a look at league play. As always, we're covering the Virtual Diplomacy League tonight. VDL is the premier virtual league featuring world-class players and global-friendly time zones. And if you enjoyed last month's coverage of the Nexus Speedboat League, it's not too late to sign up for the May-June season. If you can't make either of those games, the July-August season is right around the corner. Tour of Britain resumes play on June 12th and 13th. DBN will be covering the Tour of Britain as our feature league on the next edition of League Night, along with the July VDL games on July 10th. Mark your calendars. And the French Diplomacy League has scheduled games in June and July. DBN will be covering these games during the August edition of League Night. Moving on to tournament coverage, the Game Day Live crew is covering the Boston Massacre, which will be held virtually this year, June 26th and June 27th. The inaugural Virtual World Diplomacy Community Summer Classic will be held July 23rd to 25th. This virtual event is designed for international play, will feature 5 qualifying rounds and a top board. It's likely to be one of the larger virtual tournaments until the Virtual World Diplomacy Championship in December, and worth a lot of DBNI points. Finally, a reminder of some other upcoming DBN content offerings. The venerable David Hood will be releasing the June edition of Deadline News on Friday, June 18th. The day after that, Zachary Moyer has awoken from hibernation. That means it's time for the first episode of the DBNI Countdown Show this season, which will be released Saturday, June 19th. This will be your first chance to see how our events from this year have contributed to updated DBNI standings. To learn more about these events, check the links in the description below. Before you leave us, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Doing this tells YouTube that you like our content. It'll recommend this video to other people who like content like you do, which hopefully will grow the hobby, which is what this broadcast is all about. So we are gonna get started here. Let's bring our analysts into the show. All right, Kevin and Karthik, welcome back. After tonight's games, we'll be 1/3 of the way through the 2021 season. There's a bit of separation for our top spot, but the competition for the rest of the top 7 is fierce. Let's take a look at our standings after I bring them up on my screen. Almost there. go. And last but not least, there it is. So in first place, we've got Michalis Camaritas, and then there's a big gap between everybody else. But man, look how close everything is. Especially we got a two-way tie for sixth. Ed is not too far behind in eighth. Competition's starting to heat up. Karthik, who made the biggest moves last month?
Sure. So in some big moves, we saw Ben Kelman jump up from 11th to 3rd after a great board last month. And we also saw Craig Mayer have a huge jump to 6th place, knocks out the top 20 on the back of a monster board top. But in terms of big fallers, our own Brandon Vogel falls hard from 8th, just on the outside of making the VDL top board, to 15th place. He needs good performance in the next few months in order to make it back onto the top board.
And Kevin, who do you feel like has the biggest potential to move up into the top 7?
Well, Karthik is leaning heavily on my man here from Chicago. Brandon, the Beast Fogel, has only played 2 games, so he'll be able to add some points to it. And just behind Brandon is another weasel from Chicago, Sabia Hoja. Also 2 games, lots of potential. And then no one should be sleeping on my favorite to get there. Only 1 game played, maybe a second tonight if you stick around. Peter McNamara only has 1 game, so I'll be watching Peter this season to see if he can make it up.
Yeah, Peter McNamara being the first ever winner of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network Invitational, world-class player. Lots of good names in this competitions, kind of hovering around, not necessarily having all 4 scores. So a lot of room for some shakeups. It'll be an exciting night tonight. So, all right. Well, speaking of standings and players, let's take a closer look at our league leaders. Last week, we debuted player statistics, and the response and feedback from the players was overwhelmingly positive. We heard you loud and clear. Wes Ketchum and the stats team went back to work, analyzing statistics from every VDL game played to date. We're doing it again. Kevin, would you introduce our player stats?
Sure thing. And thanks to Karthik for giving us the first look at these last broadcast. Games played is important. We want to see who we can catch up with. As I mentioned in my predictions of top board, you wanted to see what players had the chance to get their 3rd score, their 4th score, getting that average up. So games played is an important one to start it off. You can't get big numbers if you don't top the board. So top share percentage will show us who's going to be in that top 7 at the end of the year. Centers above the player average, or the cap, we're calling it. You got to know you can't be scoring big if you don't have more centers. We like this. We like the scoring system because it rewards going for some tops, and it also gives numbers on centers. So we want to see how the players compare there. And we get into the style. So I'm more of an aggressive player. I like to make enemies more than friends. And Capo 4 is a stat that rings close to my heart. I want to get out big, and then I want to either stab for the win or more likely get beaten down to a pulp. So Capo 4, I like to see starting out. We're going to see how well players do in those first 4 years. And then more importantly, as David Hood says, the game is diplomacy, not tactics. So you want to see, are you working well with others and giving support, or are you working well with others and taking their support and not rewarding them with friendship? So we'll see what foreign supports give and receive turn out to be.
All right, Kevin. So why don't we take a look at our 3rd place player? You can introduce Ben Kelman. One thing I do want to point out, in order for, you'll notice some of these stats have an ordinal next to them, the little, like what place they are with that score, 1st, 4th, whatever. In order to be ranked, we are only choosing people that have played at least 4 games. And there are 36 players that have played at least 4 VDL games, and that's the ones that we're seeing those numbers. So when you're looking, like, is 10 a good score or not, just think of it in relative position to the 36 ranked players. And not everybody with good scores is even ranked yet, so keep that in mind as well. So, Kevin, Ben.
Excellent. So we see Ben Kelman has played 11 games, so has a full repertoire under his belt. 14% top share. I think he's building some momentum. We'll see how that plays out as the season moves on. A real nice performance last week. We've got a plus 2.85 cap. That's going to lead to some stronger scores. And as you can see, he's more of a Care Bear. He's a foreign supports given is greater, nearly by 2 on supports received. So interesting stats for Ben, and he had a strong start last time. So cap 04 of plus 102 is maybe a little lower than and reflects more of his longer term play rather than just maybe one game.
Right. So as you mentioned, Ben is a really smart long-term player. He'll get into a solid position as indicated by the plus 1 center over the average player at the end of 1904. But what he's really good at is getting to a big final score, as we see with a cap of 285, good for 6th place overall out of the 36 ranked players. So even when we see with the 14% top share, even if he doesn't necessarily get the top, he'll always be in a strong position to get a lot of points because he manages to get big no matter what. So that's a testament to his ability to get into good positions.
And in 2nd place, we've got Morgante Pell.
Yeah, Morgante keeps moving up the ranks every time. I think last month was 3, now is at 2. 14 games played. It's very impressive. He's very active in the hobby. Top share is, I think, about where he was last time because of some good performances in May. Held steady there. Not as strong of a cap as Ben at plus 178, but his cap 04 of 189 is showing a third rank. So fantastic stats, and again another giver rather than receiver. He's stronger on the supports given, so it's kind of it meets his style of play.
Yep. So as you mentioned, Morgante is a very, very strong, very capable, very aggressive player. He gets a cap 04 of 1.89, good for 3rd place overall, which means he gets out of the gate fast and gets very big very quickly. And he shows that he knows how to turn that good, strong early position into a commanding top, given the fact that he's a 27% top share. So it's just kudos to his play style for getting really big really quickly and then turn that into a top, which contrasts with Ben's style, which is more long-term and will get you higher center counts, even if it doesn't necessarily turn into a top.
And in yet another style, we have our 1st place league leader, Michalis Camaritas.
Well, if you want to call soloing a style, I like that style. I think that would be my preferred style too. It doesn't work out that way as much. Just like Brian said at the beginning, you don't see any ranks here because he only has those 3 games. However, when you solo in one of those games, your stats look good. So, Karthik, the scoreboard shows itself. I'll let you give the analysis on this.
Sure. So these are just some truly monster, unparalleled numbers. A cap of 6.4 over average, that is just mind-blowingly insane. But, when you get a solo, you can have some incredible numbers. The cap 04 of 2.29 shows he's really good at getting out of the gate, and the cap shows he's really good at getting even further out of the gate once he gets out of the gate. Foreign sports given is super high as well at 9.06, which shows that he's actually not just when he solos, he's really a big Care Bear when he does it. So kudos to him for just being an all-around great player, getting 50% top share as well. So very, very hot start for the guy.
Yeah, 1st place for a reason. I will point out that I think it's important to remember these stats are a reflection of what has happened, not necessarily what will happen. So it's important the players keep that in mind. People can build reputations through their statistics and then change that behavior. So everyone should keep on their toes, but it is a reflection of the play that we've seen to date, which is exciting. And speaking of play to date, Wes has gone to work, and what we're seeing now is a plot of the average centers by power. Kevin, do you want to talk to us about this?
Yeah, we've seen a kickoff with the season. I'm glad that Karthik's prediction of Turkey coming back. You could see the circles representing of this year, the squares of last year. Turkey's made a comeback, and I applaud the players in the league to making adjustments when they see what's working well and what's working not. That might not be the case for Germany, though, Karthik.
Yes, so Germany has had a real rough go of it this season, losing almost 2 centers on average from its last year's performance, and also being 2 centers under the average performance of all other powers. So while Turkey and Italy have generally been the more maligned powers in terms of being able to get off to hot starts, it's really been Germany that has suffered a lot this season due to the very common AIR and EF alliances basically putting it between a rock and a hard place.
Well, I'm stoked to be able to see these stats. I think that, like, going in before I saw this, I was like, man, we've seen a lot of really powerful England, France, Leviathan alliances, and the stats show that out. Germany is just having a really, really rough blow. But how cool is it that we can see this, make it visible, and we'll see if there's any adjustments based on the sharing of this information. So it'll be fun to watch. All right, well, one last thing I think is very important. Virtual Diplomacy League Commissioner and DBN co-founder Zachary Moore recently announced some big news this week. In addition to the VDL champion receiving an automatic invitation to the DBNI, the winner of the VDL regular season will also receive an automatic invitation. This significantly raises the stakes of winning the VDL regular season. Michalis Camaritas has a commanding lead in the standings right now on the strength of his solo. It's very likely someone else is going to need a solo of their own in order to take the lead away from Michalis and get that automatic invitation. The League Night team has had some spirited chatter about how many solos it's going to take in order to win the VDL this season, and we became curious what our audience thinks. To find out, we turned to Twitter and created a poll. Let's take a look at it. Here's our question of the month.
So how many more solos will we see in the 2021 VDL season? I'm surprised. So here's my take on it. We've got diplomacy players who like to talk the talk, but not walk the walk. All but 18% said there will be at least one more solo, at least one more. We've seen one in the 2-year history of the league. So my take on it is we're all thinking optimistically. My hope is that we will see some aggressive play the rest of the season.
I agree with you, Kevin. I think that expecting 2 solos, as it seems to be the mode for this poll, is a little bit more than optimistic, given how Care Bear and unaggressive playstyles have been over the course of the VDL. I think it's more likely than not that we only see 1, if any, solos over the rest of the season.
My vote was 0.
Mine is 0 as well.
Well, Karthik, you said, you've gone on record last week, you said you thought Tanya Gill was going to repeat as champion. I don't think that happens without a solo. Do you disagree?
I'll say that if Tanya plays, she's the one person I would count on to pull out the 1 solo of the year, in addition to Michalis.
Well, a final question for you both. How do you feel about the decision to extend a DBNI automatic invitation to the winner of the VDL regular season? Karthik, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think it's a great decision. I think in a league format such as the VDL, I think having sustained success and consistent success over the course of a year-long season shows your merits as a player more than just about anything else. And I think that, success warrants an invitation to the premier online invitational tournament. So I think it'd be a great for the VDL winner to get VDL regular season winner to get an invitation.
Kevin?
Yeah, as a fan of European soccer or football and Major League Baseball, rewarding a strong regular season is very important to me. So I'm glad Zach made this decision.
All right, well, it's time for our player spotlight. Tonight, we're going to meet a long-time face-to-face player, someone who's been quite active in virtual play, coming in 35th in the 2020 DBNI season, qualifying for the DBN Invitational, and making a big move in last month's games. It's the big guy from Big Sky, the Doctor of Death himself. We'll go now to Corey's interview with Craig Mayer.
All right. Hi, Craig. How are you doing today?
Good, Corey. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. It's been a while. I'm doing very well. I just want to get right out in the open. It looks like you are in a doctor's office,
Yeah.
appearing to wear doctor-style clothing.
Yeah, I meant to do this interview from home, and sometimes that just doesn't work out. So here we are.
Well, I think everyone is going to appreciate getting to know you a little bit through just seeing all those, what I'm assuming are very impressive degrees on your wall.
They're all fake.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe shouldn't have said that on a recorded line, but that's fine. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you today. So I have met you before in person, and we have played, I think, on a board together.
Yeah.
But not everyone else knows you. So I just wanted to say hi and kind of ask you, like, hi, who are you? How did you get started playing diplomacy?
Hi, I'm Craig, also known as Ghost on Backstabber and OBGYN Kenobi on web diplomacy. I got started playing diplomacy as a child. So where I grew up in this little tiny town, and on Saturdays at the local library, they would have board game mornings. And my older siblings would go and play, and there was a group that always played diplomacy. And once in a while, they wouldn't have enough people, and they'd let me play Austria. And by 1902, I was done, and I could go play other games. And then I just kind of, grew out of it and forgot about it. And then in 2013 or 2014, my wife and I ended up having to live on different parts of the country for about 18 months just for professional reasons. Professionally, I needed counseling, and she, no, just kidding.
My parents actually did the same thing. So this actually,
yeah, no, it was because of
training.
training. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I just kind of like discovered it again online, and I just started playing online. And then I realized there were tournaments, and so I went to a tournament, and then I just really got hooked and just can't get over how much fun the game is.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting because I feel like I started the same way, like I'd play Austria, I'm out by 0-2, and now I'm like, this game is so fun.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have thought that from where it started. Well, that's really exciting. So you started as a face-to-face player because there was not online diplomacy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started like, online playing like Gunboat and stuff like that, but really like true interactive diplomacy, I started as a face-to-face player.
Got it. And you're playing now virtually with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, and then you have that experience of being a face-to-face player. So what do you think is the main benefit of each for you?
Yeah, so for me, playing face-to-face is it's just so much more fun, in my opinion, because there's that element of like face-to-face, like in-person interaction. Playing virtually, you can hear the voice, and you can kind of you can get an idea of what people are thinking. So I'm an amateur psychologist. I don't know if you know this. So I just love that like interpersonal interaction, trying to figure out what people are thinking, what's their motivation, and what's their body language telling me. Do they want to go away and talk, or do they want to talk at the table, so they want other people to hear what we're saying? Like all of that sort of complexity of the interpersonal interaction is just so much, like, it's so interesting, it's so fun. Face to face, you don't get to sit there and stare at the board the whole time you're talking to somebody because you got to go away. It's just I like that messier kind of gameplay. That just really appeals to me. I love that chaos.
Yeah, I personally agree with you. I do super love, though, the virtual community. I feel like this year in particular, everyone has really come together and really tried very hard to make a community. So go ahead.
So for the virtual stuff, the thing that I think I love is that there's so many different players now, so many really incredibly good players, and it levels the field. Like, because if you're financially not able to go to a tournament, across the country, well, and you don't get to play. But virtual, it's just this level playing field for the game that it is. I love that it's equal opportunity. You don't need to be at any sort of station in life to be able to participate. I like that a lot.
I absolutely agree with you. I love the new players that we've seen. Well, they're not new, right? They were playing virtually. I wasn't aware of them. And I love that they're joining us, and maybe some of them are going to come play face to face.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If they don't, we've had this opportunity to play with them virtually, which I think is really great.
Full disclosure, I love some players more than others.
I won't ask you who they are. I won't make you name names here, but I'm personally pretty interested. So do you have like any like final comments about either your journey getting into diplomacy or just kind of where we're at right now?
I mean, I think it's really exciting. Obviously we've had a big transition where we went into the virtual tournaments, and there's this big explosion. So I'm optimistic and also a little concerned about the transition back to face-to-face. I'm concerned about, the people who just love that face-to-face. Maybe that's all they need. Once they go to their 3 tournaments a year, they won't be playing virtual anymore. And vice versa. Some people will be like, well, I'll just stay with the virtual. I don't even want to go anywhere near these in-person humans.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit concerned and interested to see how that plays out. And then I just think the game's wonderful. I think it's so applicable to other parts of life. Like, you have to be able to navigate through. And it's improved my interpersonal communication skills at work, in my personal life, with my family. It's just a great game, because not everything is comfortable in life, and you have to be able to navigate uncomfortable situations.
I really love the way you put that. I find that also to be true myself, which is part of the reason why I also love face-to-face negotiations, for the same reason.
Yeah.
But,
Also,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I love to taste the tears, not just hear them.
But this has been super great talking to you, Craig. I'm so thankful that you were willing to join us today for a little bit. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Corey. It was really great seeing you.
Awesome. Bye, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Well, that just about wraps things up for the opening segment. Before we go to our games, let's give our analysts one more moment to set up some storylines for the night. Karthik, we'll start with you.
Sure. So as I mentioned, Germany's been having a really, really rough year so far. So my thought is, I'm kind of curious to see how Germany decides to handle this dynamic. Can they stop an EF from occurring? And also, can they manage to get Austria, Italy, and Russia away from the stalemate line? If Germany can figure out how to manage those 2 aspects of the game, I think Germany can see a resurgence. If not, another 2 eliminations or 3 eliminations for the Germans, unfortunately.
So Karthik's going to keep an eye out on Germany. Kevin, what are you watching for?
Well, I'm looking at the players. It's a smaller field tonight, but we're going to see some of the top 10, and we're going to see some players who are trying to make it to the top. So it's the players who play the game. We'll see how they react to what's been going on, and I'm looking forward to tonight's games.
All right. Well, we are going to bid farewell to Karthik for a bit. He is going to take a break while we cover the VDL games, since he was playing in those games today. So Karthik, we will... if I can find the right button. Thank you. And in his place, we are going to welcome David Hood. David, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We got the runner of DixieCon and the winner of DixieCon and me. So, okay.
And Kevin, you've been to DixieCon. That's good enough.
Yes.
You participated. You get a participation trophy for that.
All right. Well, it is time for us to get to some games. Let's go ahead and take a look at who's playing in the early round of the Virtual Diplomacy League. Let's bring that up on screen. Here we go. So our Virtual Diplomacy League top 10 by the DBNI rankings. These DBNI rankings are starting to get a little stale. These are from the 2020 season. As mentioned earlier, Zach Moore and I will be doing the countdown show on July 19th, I believe, June 19th. There we go. And we'll get the updated standings. But based off the 2020 standings, we've got some pretty highly ranked players playing tonight. Obviously, we've got Matt Lynch, Chris Wardy, Jonathan Frank, Klaus de Graaf, Liam Stokes, and Ben Kelman and Karthik Konath both qualified for the DBNI. So all of them playing. We're going to keep a close eye for that. But now let's take a look at our first game. So in our first game, let's bring up our player list. Here we go. VDL game 57. In Austria, we have Klaas de Graaf from the Netherlands. In England, we have Baron of Kirkholm. France, Robert Schoop. From Germany, we have Matt Lynch from Ireland. In Italy, we have Eskil Sandblom. Russia, Alex Nagel. And Turkey, we have Chris Wardy, one of the more active players in our league. David, why don't you talk to us a little bit about these players? What should we watch for in this game?
There are some players here who have played a lot lately, but I want to point out a couple. Robert Schoop actually played in DixieCon last weekend, and his location is Germany. He lives in Germany, and he was actually the player's choice last weekend, the person that people enjoyed playing with the most. So Robert is obviously an unknown quantity, but is getting some popularity here in right when he starts playing virtually. Klaas de Graaf, who's playing Austria in this game and lives in the Netherlands, was the gunboat champion last week, or a speedboat champion last weekend. So you've certainly got somebody who knows how to push some pieces around.
Kevin.
I'm excited to see how Alex is going to do, because I think it was a 3 a.m. start time or a 2 a.m. start time in Texas. So we'll see how the East plays out with someone who may be either over-caffeinated or partially asleep.
A couple other stats I'll point out. We've got Matt Lynch with the most games played in the VDL with 8. Chris Wardy is second with 6. Alex and Eskil have both played 3. Baron of Kirkholm has been active the past couple months, but only 2 VDL games. And Klaus has only played, and Robert have only played 1 game each. So the veterans, Chris and Matt, we'll see how they fare. Matt being the biggest player, or the player with the most experience. He's played either Austria, Italy, or Germany 5 times, and he's in the top 10 top share when he plays one of those central powers. So we'll keep an eye on Karthik's prediction about the performance of Germany in this game. So what do you say? How about we get to the game?
Let's do it.
All right. So VDL game 57. Here we go. Kevin, why didn't you lead us off?
So standard openings in the West, except for Munich to Burgundy. I think we have not seen that at all recently. I think the opening and the play on Belgium, maybe people have been watching it a lot and saying, all right, France is being more aggressive than usual. Picardy seems to be, from the games I've watched, almost the default move now for Paris. But so we'll see how Matt plays aggressively there. In the East, standard bounce in black, which is old school. I've seen a lot more gunboat openings there. And then Venice to Trieste, which I'm waiting for Austria to finally stop that at some point, but it's working, so why stop it?
Yeah, it works. It works some of the time. It shouldn't be tried all the time, which is what I would argue is true for every strategy in diplomacy. You shouldn't always do anything.
Yep. So for fall 1901, we're playing some defense, and Matt has a fun move of bringing Picardy back to Paris. France is still going to pick up 2 builds and not be in too bad of position here. England goes into Belgium with the fleet, which is, you want to make sure you get near 2, and that's fine. But bringing the army down to Wales, I'll be curious to hear your perspective on that, David. Austria does. Yeah, what are we going to do? Are we going to follow down in Trieste now because Warsaw is going to Silesia? I mean, the opening is very dynamic here. It's curious to see how it's going to play. He must not have trusted them, because even Ionian did go to Aegean. I'll be curious to see how 1902 plays out after this, because the board seems open. We'll be curious to see how the diplomacy pushes into the tactics there.
Yeah, certainly it looks like a relatively standard AI, but then look at the fact that neither party went to Galicia. That means something for sure.
Yeah.
In winter of 1901, anything surprise you with these builds?
Normally, you would say that a fleet South Coast is surprising, except when you go to Silesia in fall of 01. So you got to follow it up with that build of the fleet that's clearly an anti-German fleet.
And Turkey, I was saying, building on that with Turkey. So you got a Turkish fleet Smyrna. So clearly RT seems to be working together. Could it be an art or a rat, whichever way you'd prefer to say it? And then Fleet Liverpool stands out over there.
Certainly does. And the fact that there's no English fleet in the North Sea stands out even more to me.
Yeah.
It does not look like a Leviathan today. Yeah. So I'm going to be watching Germany even more closely.
And nothing because anything the French did too. So I'd be curious if in the comments to see if there was diplomatic failures or tension.
Yeah, the one thing that we'll have to keep an eye on, though, is how aggressive is Germany going to be able to play with Russian in Silesia and Fleet South Coast?
It changes everything, and it may cause a complete realignment in the West. We'll see.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I guess my question is, how do you feel about that Fleet Liverpool? Like, understanding you've got that army in Silesia, would you have made a change in that build?
If I'm whom?
If you're England.
I don't know. That's the diplomatic part. We just don't know. Tactically, it's hard to. All right, let's say France can go to them and say, "Hey, look, Germany's under attack. We can patch things up." That build really slows it down. If there's going to be any turn, there's a way. You can get it done, but it's going to be harder to do so. So, if I were England, you got the fleet, you got Fleet London, so you got what you really wanted out of it. Just make the plane go south, and maybe you get there. And Italy's under pressure too, so it's going to be harder for England to do it. I don't know. I don't know what I would have built in that situation, but Liverpool's tough.
Why don't you stay in that theater? What are we looking at?
All right. Well, he's got his support into the channel. It is the English channel, not the French channel. So that we'll call that the play to be is in the Irish Sea. France is coming back to defend, and Germany gets the heck out of there because you gotta watch out for everything. On the map, of course, I'm looking on a smaller screen tonight. I'll have to figure out a way to look at the orders a little better here. What is Norway doing? Supporting Denmark in?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Because I see a black arrow there. So EG is together, leaving North Sea open again. There's no threat there. EG, well, we'll see. But you're not going to have any Italian help. It's just going to be a long crawl over there. The Turks get out. The fleets are moving out, which is great. Aegean gets piffed, which is not great. And RT, the rat or the art, seems fixed to start moving west.
Yes, the fleet Greece supporting the Turk into the Aegean is the key move in the east. I think it shows exactly what's happening.
All right, into the fall. Trying to get a bigger map here. My old eyes are not doing well here. So we've got thank you. Oh, that's clear now. The Austrians are getting back Trieste. Everything else is shifting around. So Rat is solidified. Germany walks out of Sweden, or was trying to attempt to bounce of Sweden. Ooh, dude, is that a diplomatic win for Russia? Or, oh gosh, how do you look at that? And then Germany comes back to Burgundy. So that's got to be diplomatic.
Either that or Germany was just trying to guess right. You know, he wasn't sure what was going to happen with the fleet in Skagerrak. As soon as I saw the fleet retreat to Skagerrak, I thought, I bet the Russians go into the North Sea. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be something the English are not expecting. And, of course, to have an enemy in the North Sea is horrible for the English. So the fact that Germany sort of miscued there and went back to Denmark, I doubt that's diplomatic. I think he was trying to bounce the Russians.
Mhm.
But I guess there's no way for us to know at this point for sure, but goodness gracious. Because it's Germany going to Burgundy means that Germany's still with England against France and against Russia, maybe.
Yeah, the questionable move I see here is Marseille holding. Like, there's nothing threatening Marseille. Germany's already been to Burgundy once. I would want to. Burgundy is a French province. I would want to be in Burgundy if I were France.
I don't like Marseille holding. I don't like Bohemia holding. I mean, why hold? Why not hit Silesia? Who knows?
Yeah.
You hit Silesia with support of Berlin, you actually would have. Well, actually, that would have been cut. But you didn't know that, so it was worth a shot.
Well, David, just to be fair, you are not a fan of holds most of the time.
I don't even like to hold in real life. I like to be in motion most of the time. So yes, that's correct.
David, ADD Hood, thank you.
Yep.
All right. For our winner of 1902, the only adjustment is +1 for Austria. I think that build looks pretty obvious.
And a rebuild for Italy, it looks like, from the PIF of Aegean and Fleet Naples seems to be obvious to me. Oh, no, he built an army. Wow, he built an army.
Yeah, that's interesting. What does that tell you, Kevin?
He's really mad at the Austrians for unknown reason.
Or thinks that he has some diplomatic ability to turn the Turks against the Austrians. And who knows? It could happen.
I'll bet against it, but you're right.
He had to do something there.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he has to unhinge the alliance or he gets smushed.
Sure. For
So
sure.
he had to take a shot.
Yep.
Well, I'll just say, anytime I'm Turkey and in Ionian in 1902, I'm having a good game. All right. Spring of 03.
Well, let's see. So AT, the Astro Turk, says, okay, unless this is planned, we can get rid of that Russian fleet. Maybe that's because there's no other follow-up in there. Failed convoy. I like the aggressive attempt by Wardy, but Apulia just holds. Wonderful. Oh man. Everything else in there, it supports very little movement, which again won't be happy. But Glacia gets to Bohemia, which is destroyed. That's not great for the German defense against the oncoming rat. But Italy, you're right, David. He seemed to stem the tide with Austria. He got Austria to continue to push with Russia towards Germany as opposed to straight west towards him. So nice play by Eskil. The West is boring, and I don't really want to talk about it. Although a little shifting of the English fleet in Belgium. Curious.
They were making sure when the Russians got kicked out that they couldn't retreat to either Belgium or Holland, I think is what they were doing there.
Fair.
But what it does do is put the English in a very interesting situation. Now, they should be able to take Edinburgh. They'll have 2, Yorkshire and North Sea, but we'll see what they decide to do there.
But then Sweden can just walk right into Norway if that's the case. So Russia's still putting pressure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Sometimes, and Doug Moore will say this, that EG can take on both France and Russia. That's true, but not if you get outguessed, and you can take them on, but not quickly.
Well, something else Doug Moore said is Germany is successful whenever diplomatically they are able to send armies, especially, away from the center of the board. And you can see in this board, all arrows are pushing inward. Not a good sign.
Well, yeah, when you've got the early triple in the east, whichever triple it is that tries to jump into Germany, Germany is always the first one to fall in that situation if they can make progress.
Fall of 03.
Oh, I like it. Lots of black.
They make progress. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So on our moves here, the West seems to be consolidating now. EF pulling apart. So peace has been had there. Trying to see, Turkey getting into Tyrrhenian is lovely. No center changes there. Yeah, the Romania was the popping of Romania, so that's good. The art is turning into iArt. Is there a good Eastern quadruple nickname? Do we have that one yet? No.
Here.
Sure as heck hope not.
Brandon is pulling what is little left of his hair out thinking about this one, so we'll question him after the fact on that. Position. Russia does not go for Norway and gets kicked out of Edinburgh, so gets Berlin, but could have had 2 from them. Interesting.
Well, could have had 2, but then the Germans would have taken Sweden. So that was what they were worried about. If they left Sweden to go to Norway, then the Germans take Sweden. The interesting thing to me is the English stay in Holland, thus taking it from the Germans, but the Germans don't stay in Belgium. Now, that positionally, that's probably sensible, but what that really means is the Germans lose another unit that way.
Yeah, and what do you pull?
It's a good question. Whatever you do is not much fun.
No.
I mean, you probably just go ahead and pull Ruhr, but
yeah, and if you've got French support or French backup coming, hopefully that's helpful enough.
Yeah, at least England and France have bounced away from each other, realizing the threat.
Yeah. In 1903, I know we're getting to the mid game here. I think I like Russia's position the most, but with having 2 allies and having this peaceful, friendly stuff, which I don't care for, of sharing 7777s and whatever, is this a chance that Russia can really get big?
Yes, because the English built fleet in Liverpool. What is going on with that? Honestly, why would you not build in London and almost any? Well, I guess the theory is they go to Clyde. I guess that's the theory, to try to contain the Russian fleet. It's in Norwegian, but it's and that might be okay. But man, it seems a little backwards.
Spring of 04.
Well.
And that's exactly what happens. They go to Norwegian with support from North Atlantic and then fill in Clyde so that the Russians have to retreat, I don't know, to Norway.
Yeah, a lot of units up in the north, a lot of fleets. And I'm still got my eye on Turkey. I know you were saying you like Russia, but you got Turkey and Tyrrhenian, Ionian, no enemies. I don't know. I like that Turkish position.
No enemies, but being aggressively passive. I mean, moving Khan to Ankara, all that does is just make your allies feel good. It certainly doesn't help you otherwise. And he's actually just holding in Tyrrhenian. So, it's great to have that position, but we'll see if he's got time to do anything with it. These games don't last forever in the VDL.
Yeah, the strategy on that is will your allies let you eat up centers from behind, which we've seen in some tournament games. I'd be curious to see if it works out for Wardy in this one.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable if I was Russia right now.
Well, let's see if Nagel is. He'll hold on to Norway, so that's a win. He's getting into Munich, so that's a win. Loses Berlin, though.
Right.
I don't know. Is that enough? Ankara holds, and Bulgaria takes Greece because of the pickups in Italy. I get that. So Russia should be feeling really. Budapest is out of there. I mean, you couldn't get much better return for Russia, I think.
Yeah, and the English, of course, have to. They unfortunately have to take another center from the Germans in Denmark because they're defending it. They're defending it. Yeah. So the English position. I mean, he is defending it. That's the thing. It's not just a trick. He kind of had to do that.
Yeah.
Now the French do take Belgium, I guess, so that the French can get another build and go down to the Mediterranean with it.
Yeah, another fleet in the south.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be watching a triple versus a triple, though. Is the best way to play.
That's why we bring in the big guns for these games, David.
Oh yeah.
I do want to say I like Turkey's position less than I did without the move to Romania and Armenia that I was expecting. So,
hey, he took Greece. What do you want? What do you want from Wardy? He took Greece.
All right. So, what do we build? Our builds here. We got triple on triple action. How does this play out?
as you were pointing out, does Wardy build something here that allows him to make a move against somebody, or does he just build a fleet in Smyrna, which would mean that he's continuing on with the Rat? I think that's a question. The Russians can't build another unit in the north in St. Pete, so I'm assuming Army Warsaw, aren't you?
That's yeah. If I'm keeping with, because even Army Warsaw, or let's say if Wardy does get aggressive and builds Fleet Con instead of Fleet Smyrna, Warsaw can come back down and protect enough, and he could swing. So Warsaw. If I'm Wardy, it's 1904. There's still some time left. I don't know.
I predict he builds a Fleet Smyrna. I think he's probably still in on the at least looking like he's in on the triple. We'll see.
I'll predict anything but Fleet Smyrna. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
You're just being like the guy on The Price is Right, who's going $1 above me. You're picking. I picked one thing. You're saying it'll be anything but that.
Yep.
So good for you.
$1 didn't win though. Fleet Smyrna
Nope.
It is.
Yes, Fleet Smyrna.
Come on, Wardy.
Wardy's all in with this triple business.
And moves aggressively, gets out of Ank. Yeah, because again, if I'm Wardy, I'd rather be picking up Austrian dots, I think, at this point than Russia. Russia's serving a purpose in the north. Austria's kind of in the middle. If I was Wardy, I think, I'd be looking at.
Well, if you're Wardy, what you're going to do is take 2 Italian dots,
Yep.
which is what he takes right now.
Yeah, and I think that was the agreement with Austria, because he got Austria moving first, and now he gets the cleanup of the rest of them.
He did. He had that guess earlier about, do I convoy to Naples? Do I convoy to Apulia? And he guessed that one. This one he gets right.
Yep.
Convoy straight into Naples. That is a death knell for Eskel. Probably.
Yeah. Well, but the French fleets turn around, so Tunis is likely safe. Although who knows? Maybe they can work out a deal. I'd be curious.
I think he was worried. Robert must have been worried about the Baron. But the Baron goes into Skagerrak and kills the Russian fleet. It's always great to kill an enemy fleet or an enemy unit in the spring turn. Gives you so many more options in the fall when you're doing a tactical exercise. Yeah,
and Nagel's under a little pressure, and now in the north here in the fall definitely is losing Sweden here, and England does turn around again. So EF is they patch things up. They go back to fighting. It's a oof.
Well, the Baron's got to turn around when Shoup comes into the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's thinking, I'm just going to say it, Shoup, there he is. Everyone else was thinking it. So I'm just going to be the one to go ahead and say it.
And follows it up into English Channel, into Belgium. He gets Kiel, France, he gets Kiel. So with support of Russia, I don't know, man.
The Germans have decided they're going to take English stuff and try to live as a Janissary.
Well, I don't know. So now I'm thinking.
Look at the United Nations in Germany there.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Russia giving Munich?
Well, if they're playing well, if this is the alliance, it's shifting. I mean, the center counts are what, like I said, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.
Lots of sevens.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, he's trying to keep his ally on side. This is a good way to do it.
Is this it's here? So if you're Turkey here, this is, you want to explode, you go now, or just call it a game?
Calling the game, somebody might call the game here that's used to ending games early, which is obviously what happens in a lot of European scoring systems.
Mm-hmm.
But gosh, can you imagine how much play is left in this game, even in a VDL situation that has a time limit? We're still, probably 6 or 7 game years away from the limit.
Yeah.
We normally get 1910, 1911-ish. There's a lot of time left.
Oh, yeah.
And with Russia under a little bit of pressure now, this could give Wardy the chance where the other side is still so discombobulated. It's not like anyone's going to really benefit if Russia pulls back. Germany can't build at home. England and France just keep dancing. This is Wardy's game to win if I'm looking at it.
Did Wardy?
I believe he builds? Yeah, he waived his build. So that's so much for being aggressive. Yep. Waived his builds.
Wow.
I mean, it depends on what your strategy is. That can be a good strategy here. Just let your partners get even further out of position and then attack, maybe.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or not.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well, like I said earlier, if you're going to have a game end, it might make sense that it's ending with mostly European players because, I'm not being pejorative here, that's just the scoring system that is often used in European face-to-face tournaments involves ending the game in 08. And so you end up with people, or sometimes a different year, but often in 08 or even 07, depending on the tournament. So this is an ending that you might expect, from players who have that sensibility.
Yeah, and I didn't know how far this one went, so it was just that was the question. It seemed to me like this is the point to end it. All the alliances are in play. If anyone was going to push for the number, I thought it was Wardy, but you take the number. It's a board top, but I think when we were looking at standings earlier, there were some second places that got you 60 points. So do you feel good about a 3-way shared top that gets you less than a decent second place?
Me?
Only if you're afraid of what would happen if you said no. But like if I'm Robert Shoup, I'm not afraid of what happens if I say no here. I don't think.
Mm-mm.
It's interesting that they ended it here. This is a good point to just say one thing. It's easy for us to say, I would have done this, I would have done that. It wasn't our game.
Yep.
And they understood what the dynamics of the game were, the negotiation dynamics of the game. And so we're not being critical here. I think we're just surprised that it ended this early. Yeah. That could be the right answer depending on the diplomatic situation. It just, from the outside looking in, it doesn't look right for everybody that said yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I was going to.
Yeah, opportunities were out there, but doesn't mean that was the right thing to take the opportunity. And I hope everybody had a good time. This did have some unique openings that I haven't seen in a while, and it looked like a fun game to play. So I hope everyone enjoyed themselves, and maybe they'll be happy with that 3-way split. So yeah. All right. Well, what do you say we look at another game?
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
All right. So for our second early round game, this was the next time slot. I don't remember when that started. I think it's early in United States time. And in VDL game 58, in Austria, we have Jonathan Frank from Maryland. England, we have Simon Both. Does anybody know how to say that?
Might as well go with that until we
All right,
ask
let's
Simon.
go with it. Yeah. Simon, if you are in chat, let us know from Sweden. France, we have Chicago's Sabi. In Germany, we have Karthik Konath, which is why he is not broadcasting today. Italy, we have Ben Kelman from Philadelphia. Russia, we have Nicholas T, which I believe we need to correct that spelling. I can't remember. It either has the H or shouldn't have. I think it should not have, and if so, I apologize, Nicholas. And then in Turkey, we have Liam Stokes from Canada. We got a good list of players here. Ben and Karthik are probably the top players from a DBNI standpoint. Liam has had a lot of success in DBN play. And then in league play, Ben Kelman's in third place. So one of the stories I'll be watching tonight is, will Ben be able to hold on to his position? Because he's in third place on the strength of 4 scores. So he needs to improve one of those scores in order for him to stay in the top 7. David, what stands out to you?
2 things. Liam Stokes is starting this game at 7 o'clock in the morning, his time. So we will see how that goes. Liam, of course, one of the more experienced players in the last 12 months of virtual play. He hasn't played a lot in the last few weeks, but has played a lot of games and usually does something interesting, something different and interesting. And then I would just point out Jonathan Frank, who is a longtime face-to-face player, very experienced player, has played a lot of speedboat lately and has really been working on his tactics. So we'll see if he can put that to play in the Austrian position.
Yeah, you picked up on my key item on this game. Is it is a speedboat game. I know Liam and Karthik and Sabi and Jonathan are all active in there. I don't know if Ben's played that much, but when you're in third place in the league, that's a good combination of players. And I don't think Simon is up because I think it's probably about 4 in the morning, maybe 5 in the morning over there. But join us in the chat, Simon, with some coffee in a few minutes. So.
Ben Kelman has played 11 games, 11 VDL games. He has a top share of 18th. But one thing that's interesting when I was looking at the stats for this game is when he plays one of the central powers, then he's got a top share of 9th. So he plays that central power well. And then Liam's had 9 games that he's played. He's got a top share of 15, but when he plays either Russia or Turkey, he's got a top of 22%, which is 7th place. So he plays Russia and Turkey well. And he's actually played Russia or Turkey 6 out of his 9 times. So very experienced in those playing that power. And then Karthik's played 8 games, has a top share of 23%. And something that stood out to me is his top share is 33%, which is, I believe, 3rd for the Central. So we got some experienced players who are playing countries that they have done very well.
And Karthik was the one that talked about looking at Germany's progress, right? So Karthik, we're looking at you, man.
And he could be foreshadowing. We'll find out.
He knew he was playing Germany. He knew he played Germany when he talked about it too. So I think this was a setup.
Set us all up. I love it.
He's laughing in the background.
All right. Let's take a look at our game. All right. Spring 1901, VDL 58. David, lead us off.
And Karthik does the standard German opening. I'm looking for anything that's relatively non-standard, and the answer is not really. You know, the only point I would make is that Ben, instead of doing the go to Trieste in the spring thing, goes to Tyrolia, the Tyrolean adventure. It gives you options for the fall, but otherwise, nothing really to write home about so far in spring of 01.
The 2 orders that stand out to me the most as I love that Venice to Tyrolia opening. If I'm Italy, I think that's my preferred opening. It gives you a lot more diplomatic play. You don't have to commit to anyway in the beginning, but it still has kind of some pressure on Austria. I like that. And then Paris to Burgundy unsupported. So if you get bounced there, which again hasn't happened all that much, but if you do get bounced there, you're kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere in the fall. So those are the 2 that stand out to me the most.
So, David, I don't recall if I'm accurate here, but I believe you were talking recently about Italy going to Tyrolia, moving into Munich, and then moving down to work with Germany against France as an opening that we used to see, but we don't see as often. I guarantee that Karthik and Ben both heard that statement. I'm watching to see if we see Tyrolia go to Munich.
Yeah, a way that can be done in spring of 02 is the Germans knocking the Italians out and then they retreating to Burgundy. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
Or not. In fact, the choice that Ben makes here is one of the more aggressive ways to attack the Austrians is to slip into Trieste and convoy to Greece with support of the Turks. So we could have an IT get released later, and you know what that'll mean if it gets released later in the game.
I'll let you save it when we see it.
Yeah, this seems really well played diplomatically by the folks taking the advantage. Sabi is away, fleet on the south coast, army in Portugal. Play style is a little slower and methodical, which I like. So it'll take some time to work those units back, allowing for some diplomacy to happen. So I'll be watching. There's really no aggression against France at this point, so kind of be watching that. England leaving the army back on the Isle. It's not an aggressive start, which will be fun to watch how this plays out.
Karthik's just showing off getting 3 builds. We'll see if he builds 3. Germany probably should almost always build all 3 when they get them, as opposed to France. So we'll see if Karthik does that.
Would you ever consider 2 fleets in an army, or is it have to be 2 armies?
No, I would definitely consider 2 fleets depending on the situation. The 2 armies is usually the right answer, but again, nothing should always be the answer.
Man,
You shouldn't be anything that's always the right answer.
There is so much to love about this turn. I love this so much. So first of all, I've got my eye on Ben Kelman, whose cap score in 04 is definitely lower than many other in the league that are ranked as high as he is. This is an aggressive start for Ben, definitely playing against his previous behaviors. And I'm a huge fan of the AI. I have lobbied hard for that alliance. But man, if Turkey's giving me Greece and I know I'm getting Trieste, I don't know if I could say no to that. That's juicy.
And he's going to Armenia, and Liam's going to Armenia too.
Yes. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's so much to get excited. And then the other thing I've got my eye on is in the West. I cannot tell. Normally, if I see a 3-build Germany, I'm immediately going Western Triple. This does not feel Western Triple to me at all. And it just looks like Germany's going to have some success.
So did Jonathan get snookered, David? Did Liam promise Romania and then really dagger him?
Yes. Jonathan got snookered by Ben and by Liam because it's an IT.
What is it, David?
It's an IT. It's an IT. It's an it.
All right. In winter of 1901, anything stand out with these adjustments?
Fleet Berlin is always an interesting. It's always an interesting question because obviously the Army Kiel is more useful if you're going to send it to Ruhr than putting the fleet there. But it sure tips your hand when you have a Fleet Berlin. It obviously only goes to Baltic in that situation. But in this situation, maybe that's perfectly fine.
And with the support into Belgium, maybe that was the condition for the build is you can't put it in Kiel. You got to put the fleet in Berlin.
Well, the Russians didn't have any choice where they build. Jonathan didn't have any choice about not building. And the Italian builds, if you've gone ahead and attacked the Austrians, then an army and a fleet. So really nothing surprising here. And in an IT alliance, the Turks have to build an army to make the Italians feel good, which they do.
Fleet Brest is curious, though. So I think that rules out anything on the triple, but maybe it's a deceptive build, and Spain will go around. We'll see it.
I'd be really surprised in this situation. But as you say, we'll see in a minute.
Yeah, the unit mix is right. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you, but my gut is saying no triple. We'll see.
No triple.
We do see the Germans getting into Burgundy, though, because Sabine decided to support into Picardy instead of supporting Burgundy. Now, that is a choice you can make. It's a little bit of a high-risk choice. I'm thinking Sabine was thinking, once the Germans get into Ruhr, I can't hold Burgundy anyway. So maybe that's why Sabine did it this way. Other than that, do we have anything surprising in the West? Probably not. Norway moving into North Sea makes sense in this situation because of where the English built. But let's look at the East, Kevin. Probably even more interesting stuff going on in the East because the Italians have already taken Serbia. The Turks have already taken Romania.
Yeah, they're slicing them up. The it that you talked about is certainly it. So
the IT's already being released, I would argue.
Yeah, and then Russia has freedom in the north, so maybe not too worried about position yet. Maybe can sneak away with Norway this time, but with Carthage coming up, yeah, we'll see.
It was interesting that the Russians went to Finland there, as opposed to, for example, just going to Norway or supporting to Norway or something like that. It's an interesting move because now he can defend if he wants to, the Sweden instead of taking Norway. Maybe there's been some Anglo-Russian talk here. I hope so, because guess what? You're supposed to talk in this game.
Yep. Got that support, like you said, and that's why I was going to follow up on it. I thought that you can guarantee into Finland there, take it to because you know you can support it, and you maybe still can't take a shot at Norway in the fall. But
true. That smells like this whole thing smells like an Anglo-Russian deal.
That had to be a misorder because Denmark supported Sweden to hold.
That's a misorder, I think.
Yeah.
Karthik Kanav misordered? What the what?
Who let him win?
Stop the presses. There's an extra edition coming out. Karthik Kanav made a misorder.
Well, if you're going to misorder, that's not the worst time to do it.
That's true. I think the move, where is the English army in London now? Picardy. That's significant.
That's hard because if you wasted the Paris support to get in there and lose Burgundy.
We're burying the lead here. We're totally burying the lead because I was paying attention to the West instead of the East. The lead is that we cannot release the IT because the Turks have taken Serbia and moved away from the Russians. So Liam, being Liam Stokes, you can never predict what that fellow's going to do. He's decided to throw back in with the Russians, I think.
So this is a little reminiscent of the Weaselmoot top board from last year, where Liam had an alliance, made a change, shifted, then made another shift, and then made another shift. So sometimes I've seen Liam use that very successfully and can kind of balance and chip away and make sure he's moving up. Sometimes it doesn't pay off. I'm going to be watching this one close. David, would you have made that choice?
I don't think so. I don't think I would have. I like the IT and where it was going, and I think I probably would have stuck with it. But of course, I wasn't in the negotiation rooms, so who knows? Liam does like to do surprising things. That's what he enjoys in the game, and by gosh, he should be able to enjoy his game. But I bet you that several hours ago in Philadelphia, you could hear somebody yelling the words Liam Stokes at the top of their lungs all throughout the Philadelphia metropolitan area.
I'm sure with another word or two in between the first and last name. So.
I don't know. Ben is a nice guy, so I don't know about that part, but I do know that the name Liam and the last name Stokes were yelled very loudly in that part of Pennsylvania.
Well, Brian, can you go back real quick, though? So this had to be orchestrated, because if Austria is in on this, why not take Trieste?
Why not take Trieste, period, if you're Austria? Just go ahead and support yourself there.
Yeah, this seems to be maybe AI patching things up and RT patching things up. That struck me as, why didn't Jonathan take Trieste there?
And maybe that was why Liam made the decision. Maybe there is a diplomatic read that he's said, hey, I've got to make a move now because I'm not going to have the opportunity if I don't.
Yep.
I'm having trouble. I didn't see that bounce at first, and I'm having trouble understanding what Jonathan did there and why. I'm not sure I see it. I mean, he can explain it to me later.
Yeah.
Even if Italy's your buddy, why would you do that? Because now the army can't retreat there. So it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Is Zach's profile picture from when he was like 15 years old?
Who's Zach Moore?
Yeah.
I thought he was 15 years old. Am I wrong? What happened here? Everybody's 15 years old in relation to me, but still, I thought he was about 15 years old.
No, everyone here on League Night just looks young.
The camera takes years off, right?
Yes, that's it. 18. Thank you, Zach. He said he's.
So he gets to rebuild. He rebuilds Serbia back at home in Venice. The two fleets in the south just to lock things up. Oh, 18. There you go. And that's it. Like, I don't know. This game had so much potential, and now let's move on.
All right.
Well, there's definitely some interesting diplomatic stuff going on here because Liam keeps coming, and Ben maybe doesn't think he's going to because he sends that unit to Western Mid. I'm not sure I would do that if I knew the Turks were continuing to come. I mean, it doesn't change the equation that much, but it changes it some to have that fleet over there like that. the Russians do use the Austrians to go into Serbia. So who knows what that means?
Yeah,
because that kicks the Serbians out. The Turks out of Serbia, and they go to Albania. So lots of interesting stuff there. The English did reposition now and put that fleet in North Sea back in Norway to intervene in some fashion in that otherwise stalemated situation between the two German units and the two Russian units. So we'll see what that means. Probably not good for Nicholas, but we'll see.
Yeah, no other movement in the west. Although a Tunis flyer to Western Med, Sabi is probably using colorful Chicago language for Ben's name.
Ben must have thought that something different was going to happen here, or you would just go to Adriatic with your fleet and then support into the Ionian or something. So there's been some kind of diplomatic breakdown here on his part to misread the situation. It looks to me like.
Yeah, and the person who's got to be cheering for Liam the most right now must be Sabi. They've had very good defense up to this point with the Italians coming. Ben's going to have an interesting choice here.
It could be that Ben was thinking, look, there's only 2 Turkish fleets. I only need 2 of my fleets. I'm going to send the other one over to probably help Sabi hold off the English is probably what Ben's thinking. But if there's only 2 Turkish fleets, then I'd want to put some fleet in Adriatic and start trying to make some progress against the east instead of worrying about Sabi. But yeah, he's definitely there to help Sabi.
Good read.
Oh boy, the Turks though kill the army, the Italian army in Greece. Turks try to take Serbia back. There's a lot of interesting diplomatic jumble, I would argue.
Or just cutting a support there to guarantee Greece.
Perhaps
that would be the way. Because when you were mentioning about the 2 fleets, maybe getting a 3rd fleet into Greece, but you can't get you're losing Serbia, picking up Greece, so it's a net.
The Russians took Vienna also, which is important. That's the jumble I was talking about. The Russians were helping the Austrians into Serbia and now take their Vienna. Now, maybe that was a deal. Maybe Jonathan is a Russian puppet at this point. I don't know.
Well, I think they bounced there before, so maybe it was agreed upon, and then Nicholas said, "Okay, let's bounce again," and then walked into Vienna instead.
It should be, but as far as the West goes, the English take Brest. The English also help the Germans into Sweden. So the EG is a little bit off to the races here.
Yeah, and Munich getting into Silesia for Dugmore positioning is a good sight to see for Germany.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so any predictions for the German build? That's the one I think both of the builds are interesting here. Kevin, what are you building if you're Germany?
Army Munich.
Yeah.
That's it. You got Tyrolia. You got to have something there. Just having one army there is just not good enough.
Yeah.
And the English have to build a fleet.
Yeah.
Probably in Liverpool.
So
that they have a better shot at overwhelming the Mediterranean or the Mid-Atlantic into the Mediterranean.
Wait, Liverpool. Good reads.
High five, David. We got him right.
So this is really, I feel like we've kind of hit our mid game a little bit early. I think we'll do who do you like here? David, you got 1 power to pick. Who tops this board?
I'm going to go with Karthik, my buddy Karthik. I think he's in good shape. Not just because he's ahead right now, which he is, but he's not ahead by much. I just think he's in good position, both diplomatically and on the board, from what I can tell.
Yeah, if this was a gunboat game and I didn't know Karthik was Germany, I would pick Germany. But since it's Karthik, I'm not, because I don't want to play favorites here. So I'm gonna go Karthik. Yeah.
If you were going to use any other name, I was going to say wrong. No, it's fine.
Is there anybody else that you feel like has a better than average chance?
England.
Oh yes, yeah. I think so.
England could
Liam. Yeah.
I don't like Liam's spot. Yeah, depends if Italy and France are working together, then there's nothing to. Liam doesn't really grow. Russia, actually, I really wanted to say Russia, but I was like, if Karthik's going to run away with it, then Russia's going to pay for it. So,
I mean, Karthik is really ahead. England's not got a terrible position, depending on how fast he could turn things around in relation to his, center count versus Karthik. Really, Liam's the only one I think that could turn it around in the East, and that's only if he sends those armies up, starts taking some Balkan stuff, and turn them into fleets.
Yeah.
All right, spring of 04.
Like that.
Oof.
Unfortunately, not like that. He loses the army. Of course, I guess he can rebuild it, except for the fact that the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. That East has been so diplomatically and stabbily interesting. I mean, hasn't everybody attacked everybody in the East so far at some point?
McAllis, before he saw no reason. Here we go.
Yeah.
This board is delicious. It's fun.
He's pretty good at Brian, he's pretty good at this game, right?
I've heard he's okay.
Kamarites? He
fine.
sucks. Look at the German moves. Karthik was bounced in Livonia, but takes Warsaw.
And
the English continue to beat up on Sabi. Sabi in 2 turns in a row has made choices to go for position instead of centers, and it has hurt them both times.
Yeah, getting Paris destroyed. That's what the first thing that I caught on the map there is Paris being destroyed is terrible in that spot. I don't know what else you would have done. I'm looking at it. I don't think you could have done too much else, but just that for the position right there, that's tough.
Maletsky's making a good point in the chat about the Russians bouncing in Bohemia instead of covering Warsaw. That was gonna be my second point. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Sorry. No, I'm here for you. I'm here for you, man.
I was pointing at Maletsky, not you, but I gotta. That was the thing. There's really no reason to self bounce there because Germany wanted in for that position, which I don't think I would have gone for. You weren't going to get it anyway. So, yeah, that's tough. Great move into black. Bad move there.
I think this is a good turn for Ben, potentially. France is now looking much weaker, and Russia made the move against Turkey. I think there's a ton of potential here for Russia and Italy to work together, and I think they could cut Turkey out. But, of course, Karthik being in Warsaw will put a damper on that a bit.
So we had an AI, and we had an IT, and we had an RT, and now we're going to and then we had an AR, and now we're going to have an RI. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay. Just keeping my acronyms straight.
That's my prediction. I've not been very hot on my predictions tonight, so we'll see if we get that one. The other thing I would like to say, I enjoyed the defense that we saw here. Some bounce in Livonia, so that was fun. Shout out.
If you can use a convoy to cover 3 spots, which is what he does, that is can be a very good move.
Yeah, I would love Russia's position here if they had covered Warsaw.
Yeah. Very passive from EG, though. Norway and Sweden just holding. Just wanted to see what Russia was going to do there, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And this Germany stands pat in the fall, so
they were probably hoping that Finland would go to St. Pete and go there. And get out of Finland is probably why the English didn't go there. Because they didn't need it since Baltic was supporting Sweden. The Norwegians didn't need to. But otherwise, what have we got going on in the East here? Yes, it looks like possibly I'm sniffing some wintergreen in the air. Budapest gone, Ankara gone.
Yeah, but Italy's helping Austria and not working with Russia. Like Tyrolia going to Munich, that was not likely to succeed.
I think he's probably trying to help slow the Germans down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think helping the Austrians there was just to try to keep the Austrians allowed to work against Liam. For some reason, Ben probably has it in for Liam. I don't know why. Spring of 05. What do we have here? Look at the positioning in France. Getting those armies where they need to go. So what you do with the Austrian Janissary is, instead of it being used against Turkey, why doesn't it being used for Turkey against those dastardly Russians?
And it's another turning again. Yeah. Well, so
I'm getting confused on my letters at this point.
Well, the Italians take Vienna. The Turks leave against the Italians. Are we back to the IT that we might release later in the game? After all, I don't know. If we get to use that line later in the game, that'll be fun. When we thought we had one in 02, but otherwise, what do the Germans do? They get in pretty decent, position. I would argue, pretty good spring moves from Carthage.
Yeah, the English are in mid-Atlantic now, so full press is on. Germany gets St. Petersburg with the English help.
Yeah, which couldn't have been, could not have been stopped because the Germans could cut both potential supporting units. So that's what I said earlier about the spring moves from Carthage being really good.
But he lost Warsaw. He traded position there.
That's okay.
Austria walks out of Romania back into Serbia. I mean, was going to be forced out anyway, but
he couldn't build for it because he doesn't have any home centers.
And then loses Ankara.
Yeah, this was a bad turn for Nicholas. I know he took Warsaw back, but positionally he's a little messed up. Yeah,
and if you're Ben here, if you already took Vienna, why not take Budapest or at least try for Budapest this time? You had nothing was touching Trieste.
Yeah,
you mean like go for Budapest with support? Yeah,
from Vienna. Yeah.
Ben Kelman showing why he's third place in the league right now, going up 2.
Yeah, Budapest would have gotten him 3 because Germany's in Tyrolia, so getting an extra army and 2 fleets would have been really helpful.
Yeah, McCallus is pointing out in the chat about the Italians taking Greece from the Turks. That was probably arranged, but who knows? Who knows in the East anyway? In the East might be A versus I versus R versus T versus A. It might be what it is.
So Russia gives a giant FU to the East, disbands everything in the North. We've got 2 army builds from Ben. Kevin, how do we feel about those builds?
Definitely, obviously Venice, but not getting the third. I don't. Yeah. It all depends on what was Greece. Was Greece arranged? If Greece wasn't arranged, I think you're going to need another fleet to deal with Turkey. But seemingly, maybe it was arranged. I guess we'll find that out.
My money, based off those builds, is it's arranged.
Yeah. That's we figured. And then if I was Russia, I'd pull those 2 as well. Not necessarily even a message. I think positionally, like, you're not going to get anything up north. EG are not cracking anytime soon, it looks like. So those 2 units are just, you're not going to gain anything out of it, and you can't defend anything else you have. So I'd pull those.
I think so, and just hope that EG falls apart as an alliance somehow. That the Carthage gets tempted here to go after Norway, which he doesn't, by the way.
No.
This is what I thought Penn was going to do with those armies, which is put them in Piedmont and Venice, because it really helps. He's trying to prop Sabie up and defend against Carthage. So those armies are helpful in that regard. But wow, Mid-Atlantic to North Africa.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wouldn't gamble on doing that, especially that's where I'm thinking having that fleet.
Well, he's got the Greece fleet he doesn't need anymore, maybe, is what he's thinking. Because why would Austria stab him? And he's working with the Turks now.
Well,
you don't really need the fleet. in Greece.
As you mentioned in your I versus A versus R versus, I'm sure A has a little out for I as well. So maybe
he's just trying to survive at this point. But I'm beyond predicting what happens in the Balkans. I'm just beyond it. By the way, so is the rest of the world in terms of world history. We're all beyond predicting what's going to happen in the Balkans ever. Diplomacy is no different.
So, does Germany have a shot at a build this year? The reason
Germany
I ask
is very spread out from a build point of view. I mean, Germany's goal here is to help the English get around the Horn, and then perhaps those armies can be of some value. I mean, he's only got two. It's hard for him to do a whole lot from Tyrol. Tyrolia is there to aggravate. It is not there to take centers.
Are you tempted at all to take Norway and Paris and move into an overextended England?
Yes, I'm definitely tempted.
Kevin, are you tempted enough to do it?
I'm always tempted to do it.
I asked you.
Yeah. So am I tempted to do it? Yes, I'm always, like I said, I'm always. The question is, would I do it? Gosh, I would want to know. I would want to have a read on. Yeah, I would want to have a read on IT at this point, because if IT are completely solidified, I probably don't do it. If there's any hope that Ben will turn to go east, then I'll do it.
Here's why IT can't be completely solidified. There are two Turkish fleets.
And that would be my pitch.
Eventually, the second Turkish fleet is totally useless. Now, if it can somehow get popped or something, that's one thing. But right now, it's not a great. I mean, he can eventually use them against the Russians. Don't get me wrong. But the units are not in a perfect situation.
Yeah, my pitch to Ben would say, look, if I stab England, it takes the fleet pressure off you. You could probably grab some French dots, and yes, Turkey has those two fleets which could eventually come back out. That would be.
I mean, the Turkish units are going to be anti-Russian, which is good for Karthik.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably.
Let's find out. So, David, is Karthik moving against England?
I don't think so, but I hope he does.
Kevin?
Not only would it be more interesting for us, I think it would probably be good for Karthik.
Sadly, I give the same answer. Sadly, from a broadcast perspective, I give the same answer. But
I'm saying he goes for it. Let's find out.
Karthik takes Norway.
Yeah.
He tried to take. He tried to take it. Yeah, he tried to take it. He went the wrong way though.
Tried to sneak in.
He could have done it the other way. He could have done it.
Congratulations to Simon for sniffing it out.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely sniffed it out. There's no question about it. I mean, he was a little bit stymied, so I understand why Karthik did it, but he should have gone Gascony to Paris, because that really couldn't have been. I mean, the only way that would have been stopped would have been Paris to Gascony with support.
Yeah, Marseille would have had to help, and that probably wasn't happening.
I mean, if he had gone Brest supports Paris to Gascony and guessed right, he could have done it, but otherwise Karthik had that one.
Right. What is Turkey build here?
Yeah, and IT's solidified though. There's those fleets getting out of there. So
again, though, that's good for Karthik, really. +1 and -1's not terrible for a stab, but it's obviously not as good as +2 -2.
Turkey, if I'm Turkey, I build Army Inc.
Yeah, and he does.
I'm looking at the old map, so I swear I didn't see it.
All right, spring of 07.
Oh, there we go.
Now he goes to Paris from Gascony.
Yeah.
Liam Stokes. Whose team are you on? Answer: Liam Stokes' team, and that's it. Because he has turned tack again.
Well,
and that's bad for Karthik.
Dave, I was watching the May edition of League Night, and believe what you said, though, is you must dominate your own sphere first, your own area. So Liam's just saying, look, I got some work to do over here.
Yeah, you can do that after you take Sevastopol, after you knock the Russians for a loop. I mean, this may turn out very well for Liam. Who knows? But the downside is, I mean, the reason he can do this is because there's an EG war now.
Yeah, and that's why
that gives Liam some flexibility. Sorry, that gives Liam some flexibility.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you, the diplomats. So we're into the fall. Yeah, convoy, you get Serbia. So picking up to Russia comes down. Turkey helping Russia into, well, maybe a little more defensible position against Germany, he's thinking.
Well, Russia's his friend right now, so he's giving him a center because the Turks are getting two.
I think this is called a hidden juggernaut.
No, it is still probably A versus I versus R versus T versus A is probably what it still is. That's my guess on what's actually going on in the East. And by the way, I think in the last turn we did again hear a very, very loud Liam Stokes in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, said by Ben Kelman. This one may have had some colorful Philadelphia language with it.
Oh man, I love this so much. This game is so fun. It's so messy and it's delicious.
Karthik's helping Sabi into Brest. That was a good move.
Mm-hmm. All right, so France goes up a build. What do you think they build?
It's going to be in Marseille. What do you think? What do you think, guys? What do you think? Yep. That's actually an interesting question. I'd probably be tempted to build a fleet and try to work with Karthik, which means you need another fleet. We'll see.
I'll bet Army.
Army was my initial thought, but wouldn't it be fun to see Mid-Atlantic move up to North Atlantic or Irish and Spain to Gascony, Marseille into Spain? Like, there's a room for a convoy, and if Karthik's willing to hold off, that could be good for both of them. And then
maybe
if that army gets convoyed out, that's not horrible for Karthik in the long run.
I mean, you build the army if you're the French, you're only either attacking Karthik with it or defending against Ben, and hopefully Sabi can diplomatically avoid both of those things.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an army.
You had advance notice. You cheat.
Did not.
Because Marseille, if it's Fleet Marseille, it cannot go to Gascony, and so Sabi will always order it to Gascony.
Oh, good.
That's why I made it.
Yeah, that's best argument.
I have no idea what's going to happen in Spring 08 of this game. Let's find out. I have no idea. Wow. Liam, I'm sorry. Which side are you on again? Apparently not the Russian side, after all. Made another deal with Ben because look at the self-bounce in Eastern. Doesn't come out to Eastern from Smyrna. Self-bounces there. So, Liam and Ben, best buds. Best buds. IT Alliance back on. What do you guys think?
I want a graphic. There better be a league night graphic to show the alliance structure of the East for this game.
Here you go. It's right here on this chart. It's just a bowl of spaghetti.
except for one line of black pepper going up, up, up.
One line to rule them all.
It's true.
Oh, man, this game is so fun.
And Karthik's in the North Sea. That can't be good.
Now in London.
Yep.
With help from Sabi.
Oh, yeah. No, Sabi tries to take Paris here, right? Karthik didn't let that happen. So that obviously was not diplomatically arranged.
Mm-mm.
Unless it was diplomatically arranged on Karthik's part and he didn't follow through. Hey,
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So Karthik now has no friends unless Karthik's friend is Nicholas. I don't know. Interesting. Karthik's up to 11.
Yeah, I would bet this there's really no reason to play at this point. Really, no one's put any pressure on Karthik. Liam keeps flip-flopping, and no one's going to help his score up. Ben maybe, but what can Ben take? Ben can't grow. I'll predict a draw vote. At least a vote.
I do want to say one quick thing. I know we need to keep moving here, but Jonathan Frank, how many centers has that fella been in at one? And now he's in freaking Romania. He was in Serbia, has been in Budapest, now he's in Romania. He is scrambling. That's what you're supposed to do, ladies and gentlemen, watching this stream. What you're supposed to do as a small fry is figure out a way to stay alive, and Jonathan Frank has done that.
Yep.
Anyone who watched the Broadcaster Brawl knows I love to see someone tap dance. I think that's one of the most fun things in the game, whenever you're the tiny little power and you can use your one tiny little power to help control what other people do. It's a blast.
I agree, that's a blast. You know what's more fun than having one center? Having 11. So way to go. So I'm also pretty happy with Karthik right now. All right, Spring 09.
All right,
what have
Kevin
you got in
predicts
store
a
for
draw.
us?
We do not draw. We keep going.
Draw. Well,
That was Sabi's chance to take Paris by guessing correctly, and Sabi did not take Paris. But leaves the English Channel, I guess, because taking a shot at Liverpool. I don't know if you're screwing around with Karthik and Paris, maybe you leave the English alone and use that fleet to screw around with Karthik. I don't know. But Karthik is back in the North Sea. I guess that's because the English left to go to Skagerrak, but still, Karthik position is still pretty good.
Yeah. Got to
The
cover.
Italians take Serbia. You know why? Because apparently there is no IT after all. Dum-dum.
No.
No alliance is allowed to last more than 1 year, and it's a rough 50-50 if it'll last one season.
Somebody needs to go back and see how many units have been piffed in Serbia. Because it is several units have been piffed in Serbia in this game.
There's
We'll put the research team on that.
A legendary episode of South Park where they count how many times they say the S word throughout the whole episode, and the counter just keeps going up and up. That's our Serbia counter for this game. Fall of 09.
Yeah, I mean, that's you know why Karthik went to the North Sea, so he can take another center from the English.
And gets Brest.
Yeah, now he does lose Paris this time. But positionally, that doesn't matter. Does not matter positionally, because Sabi really can't. I mean, Sabi can't even rebuild the unit. So that's the downside of having those armies, is that they can't go anywhere.
All right. So we talked about solos earlier in the broadcast. That was our Twitter post of the month, or poll of the month. Can Karthik reach 18? I mean, they can, but is there enough time?
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. In an untimed game, yeah, I'd almost even put money on it at this point with dysfunction of IT, AIRT, IRT. But in a time game, there's no projection is you can get through 12 game years. If you're fast, maybe 13. I don't think it could be done in 3 years.
There might be time, but surely Ben and Nicholas can figure out a way to prevent that.
Yeah.
Well, I also think it's interesting. Ben's picking up some more centers here. I think he's demonstrating why he's scoring so highly despite a low top share. This is another example where he's coming back at the end of the game, expanding that center count up, getting his points up, but he's just behind what Karthik was. So it's interesting to watch the stats play out on the screen in this game.
Yeah, if we roll forward into winter, you could see that's right now it's at 62 points, which is greater than the three-way 7-center shared top from the first game. So I like his green line moving up.
And it's your 3 scores count, and then it's the average of the rest. So Ben's average is going to be higher than many others in the league.
Yep.
All right. Spring of 1910.
Still playing. I love it.
Karthik moving fleets forward as Karthik should. mean, Nicholas, does sort of a desultory. What is that word? Yeah. Anyway, Karthik does a move that doesn't really matter much to St. Pete. I've forgotten how to say that word. Dulcitory, no. Let's see. Italians really are going after Turkey. I didn't know that. Lost Burgundy.
With Austrian help, so AI is back on.
Austria is being supported by everybody around them.
Not Turkey, though.
No, only because he couldn't afford to. Otherwise, he would have done it. I mean, this is why we were saying earlier that Sabi's position was really messed up. There wasn't any way for her for Sabi to defend at all.
Yeah,
given the situation.
Yeah,
I mean, Sabi has tried the best that Sabi could in this game, but goodness.
Well, I mean, Sabi, they were defending extremely well to be in this position in 1910. Like,
there's no question about it. I think if we had assumed that Sabi would still be alive at this point, that would have been a difficult assumption to make in about 03.
Yeah. But just think of it, the one turn, if the order would have gotten into Paris on the one turn for Sabi, I know Karthik, he had a guess wrong as well, but Sabi that same way, the position would be completely different just with that one order. Yeah.
Yes.
And Ben, look at Ben. I mean, he's got Bulgaria. If Austria, my question to you, David, is Romania going to get back to Serbia here?
Let's hope so, because then it could possibly get destroyed in Serbia, and we'd have another thing to add to the counter.
Yeah, but Ben could pick up Khan on this turn too. If Austria is friendly, Ben gets 2 more here and is pushing for a board top, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Way to go, Ben Kelman, coming back from a lot of goofy stuff that happened to him earlier in the game. Way to go, Ben.
Yeah, look, I mean, we get this line. They're getting close. This is fun. It's a race to the end.
Nope, Serbia stays free. Oh, off the board. Yeah, so all right, so let's focus on the West.
Karthik takes Liverpool, which was going to happen, obviously.
Yeah.
If he's got time, Karthik's in such a good position. I just don't think he has time.
Yeah. Because Brian, what's this? If we go forward and just to see the results of this, what's he at? 15? Well, 2 years. Can he get 3 more in 2 years?
If there's 2 years, sometimes the game ends in 11.
Yeah, let's just say for discussion, it can't happen in 11 unless someone throws him.
It seems unlikely. I mean, what does Karthik take that quickly? I mean, he could take Spain, maybe.
Spain is
because the Italians can hit Marseille.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, so that wouldn't.
That's okay. Now, listen, I don't think Karthik had time to do anything better here.
Yeah.
So I think this is
congratulations, Karthik. This is Germany did well as predicted. It's always nice to make a prediction when you've seen your own game. And Ben, I was very impressed with Ben's comeback at the end. Made it a race. Man, this is a game where I wish we'd been able to kept playing. I think it was a foregone conclusion of a solo. No, I think maybe
it's not foregone. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's an easy 17 though.
I think it was easy to underestimate Karthik in this game because it's not like he has had any good success in the last 7 days.
No. All right, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. Kevin, any final thoughts?
No, great game by Karthik. I'm glad I followed through on my prediction and did take him even though his name was Karthik.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's switch over to our next segment. Before we do, though, let's take a look at our standings after these games. So here we go. And, all right. So at the end of this segment, we've got Michalis, Morgante, and Ben maintaining their position. So not a lot of shifts. Let's keep moving on to 11. So here we see Karthik moving into 17th. So Not a lot of movement at the top, but that's a really good score for Karthik. It'll put him in position if he plays a couple other games to be a contender.
I predicted he'd be in the top 7, right? Didn't I? No.
Kevin, you're really good. Is that what somebody needs to say to make you? You're really good at this. Good
I'm
job.
good at predictions, bad at playing.
Network for a minute.
Good
There we
job,
go.
Kevin.
Yeah. So this is our pre-broadcast. So Ben had 257, and then at the end he's at 273. So he did manage to improve his score. So good job, Ben.
Yeah, good game, Ben.
All right. Well, now it is time for us to head over to our feature league, and tonight we are featuring the Diplomacy World Cup as played on Web Diplomacy, getting some extended deadline play. So let's go ahead and bring on Karthik. Karthik, welcome. David, welcome. And let's see. Karthik, why don't you go ahead and introduce the World Cup? Oh, Karthik, you're on mute.
So the World Cup, it's basically an extended deadline online tournament held on Web Diplomacy. It's basically a team-based game. So here you'll have 14 teams from all around the world, with each team being made up of 4 to 5 players, all from the same
Hi,
country
Tyrone.
or
It's so
region.
nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
Sorry, it's all from the same region. So the team will consist of 4 players. So there'll be 2 players who will play standard extended deadline full press games. You'll have 1 player who will play a public press game. You'll have 1 gunboat player, and then 1 substitute who can fill in for any of the games. And in addition to that, one of the team's players will also be playing the France versus Austria games, which is a 1v1 variant, which is really good to hone your tactics and strategic expertise in going for a solo. How they're going to playing it, it's a lot of fun. But this is basically putting the best online players, all representing their countries, and having them go at it one with each other. You'll find many familiar names who follow the virtual face-to-face community. You'll see Katie Gray, who is a captain, I believe, for the Greatest Lakes team. I'm the captain for Team California. DBN's own Zachary Morris playing. You have a bunch of different players, you have Marcus Zelstra representing England. So a bunch of different players that to follow along with. It's going to be a great time.
Right, and in a little bit of a spoiler, we do have an interview that Corey did with Tyrone Person. He's a fantastic person. I played with him at a couple of Windy City Weasel games, and he's played some face-to-face games and tournaments, but he's primarily known online and is competing, I believe, fairly successfully, although we couldn't get him to admit it, in his World Cup team. So let's go hear his interview now.
Hi, Tyrone. It's so nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
Hey, Corey. It's nice to meet you too. I'm doing pretty well.
So I really wanted to just touch base with you and kind of find out a bit more about you. How did you start playing diplomacy?
I started playing diplomacy. Oh man, it was a while ago. This was back in 2014. I was in high school, and a friend of mine had introduced me to the game online through webdiplomacy.net. So that's how I started playing. That's sort of where I play mostly now. I have gone to a few, quite a bit face-to-face events through the Windy City Weasels, because I'm based out in Chicago. Well, here in Chicago, and then I've gone to a few of the more national events. I went to the World Diplomacy competition, the one that was in DC. So I think that was 2018 was the one that I attended. And I will be going to more face-to-face events. It's just I've gotten really busy. I've sort of been really enjoying retirement, the past couple of years. But then after the World Cup started, I decided to, throw my hat back into the ring, play with a few players that, I know, and, just have a good time.
Well, I definitely want to talk to you about the World Cup, but I guess I'm curious, what's your opinion on, transitioning from the online version of play to face? So you said you've done a little bit of it, even though you're primarily over in the online space. What do you think are the main differences or maybe main benefits of each?
So the main benefit of there's drawbacks. So I think that online play and face-to-face play is it's a different game. I think that diplomacy is, I guess, different aspects of diplomacy shine through better and on each sort of platform. So when you're playing online, it's better for anonymous play. I mean, it's not completely anonymous, but things like reputation, things like people figuring out what you tend to do with certain countries, that doesn't really take that doesn't really play a factor in how you play. And so things like skill, tactics, those are a little bit more important. Whereas when you're playing face to face, reputation can be a huge factor in how the game turns out. And there's a lot of meta that goes into it. Like certain players play certain things all of the time, when they play a certain country. So, there's a lot of that going on as well. So if you really want to just like play diplomacy, just play it at its like sort of bare minimum, I think that online is really good for that. But face to face, it's fun because it's sort of as you play, as you get to know the players more and more, because it's a pretty niche community. It turns into a different game depending on how you want to how you like to play. So
yeah, that's for sure true. I think everyone who's played online and face to face would agree with what you're saying. So you brought up the World Cup a bit. Tell me about that. Tell me how it's going. How you feel?
Oh, I feel really good. So I can't say too much, but I think that this round that we're in now it's not going too poorly, and then I think last round, we ended up in a really good spot. So I'm really liking where things are going. And it's a team effort, me, Katie, pretty much everyone. I mean, Katie, she's our captain, she's been leading us to victory this entire time. So, we got to put faith in her. And I mean, she's really shown through. So
that's awesome.
Really good.
So I know that a couple of viewers are going to be like, wait, what team? Can you explain a bit about the format?
Oh, yeah. So, that's another thing about online play that's really cool is that because there's so many players, because there's so many different, ways to play the game, like technically, you can have different little tournament formats. And that's true for, face to face, but I think that online, you can just come up with weird, kooky ideas. So the World Cup is it's a variant of diplomacy. It's still diplomacy, but there's different teams. So there's 4 or 5 players on each team, and they're generally from like around the same area geographically. And then there's different formats. So you have your full press games, which is people are able to talk to each other, they're able to chat locally and globally. And then there's a public press, which means that all of the chats are public. So everyone is basically talking in a giant room. Everyone can overhear each other. There's
otherwise known as a Wilson.
Yes. And there's also public press. There's a gunboat, which is no talking allowed. It's just full, when you move your pieces every time the turn is up. And that's the third one. And the fourth one that they just added this year was the 1v1. So that's actually a variant of diplomacy that it uses the same board, but there's only Austria and France, and those you have to sort of race to like get to 18 centers. And so the different players, they play different parts of the diplomacy. Each of the sections. So that what makes it a team effort.
Awesome. Well, thanks for explaining a bit about that. I wish you lots of luck, and I hope to see how well you do.
Yes, I hope we do pretty well. I think we're gonna do pretty well. I'm not sure where we'll fall. Maybe we'll win it all. Maybe we'll come in dead last. Who knows? I don't want to give too much information, but I
Yeah,
do feel
don't give away your secrets just yet.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tyrone. I really appreciate you joining us.
All right. So that was a lot of fun. Tyrone is always fun to speak with, and Corey's done a great job with our interviews. Really grateful for her. But now it's time for us to get to a World Cup game. This will be one of our first extended deadline games to cover. I'm really excited. My background is originally from Extended Deadline World. I think many face-to-face players found the game online and then transitioned. So this is near and dear to my heart. Happy to see it. Let's add on Ed Sullivan. Ed, you've had some experience with Extended Deadline as well. You want to talk to us about that a little?
Well, I used to be okay at Extended Deadline, but now I suck. After a virtual face-to-face, I've lost the patience to be as diplomatic. I like it going quicker in VFTF, but I love Extended Deadline play. I play on Nexus, though, not WebDip, and I know there are great players there like Karthik. I just can't get down with the interface.
Yeah, we're
Sorry,
happy to have Ed and Karthik for this stream. Let's take a look at our players for this game and bring it up now. I gotta share. That always helps if I do that. Let's get this going. Here we go. So for our 2020 World Cup coverage, we are choosing World Cup Group A FP2. That's full press. And in Austria, we have Joseph IV. In England, John Smith. France is Katie Gray, the aforementioned captain of the Great Lakes region from Indiana. Germany is Swordsman 3003, also known as Brother Board, one of the more prolific diplomacy writers and the online diplomacy champion recently. So in the world of Extended Deadline, that's the equivalent of the world champion. Fantastic player, great blog, great podcast. Check him out. In Italy, Super Wordy. I know I've played with Super Wordy before. I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
He's a European player who's been to a couple of Nexus finals. Fantastic player.
Yeah, fantastic player.
Yeah, absolutely. In Russia, we have Liam D, maybe, 101. And in Turkey, we have the Diplomacy Briefings, Lady Razor, one of the best diplomacy artists, recently did a rendition of Karthik as the champion of DixieCon. Fantastic lineup. I'm so excited to see this. Karthik, Ed, you've played with these more than I have. What do you have to say about these players?
Sure. It's a fantastic board. I mean, everyone on here is really, really, really good at this game. Two people I want to highlight are probably Katie Gray and then Brother Board. If I had to guess, those two players will be dominating this board. Not because anyone else on here isn't great, because they all are. But when I have to think of superlative players in the hobby, Katie Gray and Brother Board are at the top of my list. Brother Board probably, in my opinion, pound for pound the best Gumbo player in the hobby.
Yeah, could give Riaz Barani a run for his money.
For sure.
Ed?
Well, it's hard to argue with either of those points. I mean, Brother Board a year ago beat me in Media Wars playing Germany. He plays a really patient, good Germany. But Leonardo Superwerdi as Italy is a fantastic player. His tactics are almost always perfect. So I'd be curious to see how he plays with this group. I'm looking forward to a good game.
Yeah, same for me. All right, let's get to the game. All right, spring of 1901, World Cup, game one, here we go. Karthik, why don't you take the lead?
Sure, I'll start off in the West. So we see Katie going with what seems to have been a very, very common face-to-face opening. Less common, I feel like, in online. But it's really good if you want to go for an FG. So go Paris Picardy and then standard elsewhere. Otherwise, the only other things worth noting are the Churchill Edinburgh variation from John Smith. And that's about it. Everything else is relatively straightforward.
In the East, I'd say everything is standard except you don't see Smyrna move to con as much as you used to in years
Very
past.
true.
It's a little, Matt as Lady Razor. His real name's Matt. That's not a secret. Is traditional player. And Venice Holdings, a tad unusual, but not a bad move. Just don't see it as much as you used to.
Very true.
Sorry about that. There we go.
Cool. So yeah, in 1901 in the West, we see the convoy of Edinburgh to Norway. This is one of the reasons why I really like the Northern opening, is that it gives you the opportunity to convoy Edinburgh with either the North Sea Fleet or the Norwegian Sea Fleet. Here, the English choose to convoy with the Norwegian fleet, leaving North Sea free to go to Belgium. This does cause some issues, though, as Brother Board cleverly lets that happen, instead opting to send Denmark to North Sea, putting him in phenomenal position to strike right at the heart of the English. Katie just simply takes out over Spain and Portugal, while Russia is let into Sweden. Having the South.
So I think the story here is as the Russian-Austrian cooperation going on in the East. Okay, there's clearly a deal where they didn't bounce in Galicia. Russia moves north. Russia puts a fleet into Romania, and doing so gives up the Black Sea to Turkey. We'll be curious to see what the build is by Russia, because Russia will have two, I suspect. At least one fleet, maybe two.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be curious.
Expect some balancing of powers right here by Russia. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Army Warsaw and then Livonia to Prussia, Warsaw to Silesia.
What do you know, Karthik?
What do I know?
I was right.
Clearly nothing. Oh, man. Maybe it's going north. Oh, wow. That is something. So we see two fleets being built by the Russians. I love to see it. Not even sure if it's the best move, but it's just so fun to see Russia being that aggressive. You see a fleet keel from the Germans, two fleets in Edinburgh and London by the English, Fleet Brest, Army Paris, and then we see Fleet Naples and two armies, not really much of a choice for the Austrians, with Fleet Smyrna being built by Lady Razor. So in the north, we see the English being, is that them walking into North Sea with support from Norwegian? Yes, it is. Well, so North Sea is forced to retreat to Skagerrak, while the Baltic, while Kiel goes to the Baltic, putting them in position to take control of Sweden, possibly in a range retreat at Brother Board's behest in order to get positioned there. We see, on the other hand, Katie Gray making very aggressive moves against the English, going to the English Channel, going to Mao, bounce in Burgundy. It's interesting to see whether or not the bounce in Belgium was arranged there. On the other hand, Norway is taken by the Russians with the Northern Fleet.
Yeah. Norway goes to the Russians, and a lot of AR cooperation.
Right. So now England is put back into Norway, while Skagerrak takes Sweden. Kiel slides up to Denmark. The English see how dangerous the French are. England is forced to hard guess whether to cover Wales or whether to or to hold in London. They choose to hold in London. Katie Gray gets the outguess as she convoys into Wales, putting her in really, really strong position to just overrun the English islands. I'll let Ed take the south.
Well, I'll start the south by going to the north. The loss of the two Russian fleets in the north, not good, especially when you built one.
Yeah.
Then more AR cooperation as Bulgaria's gone, and that's just it's not looking good. And Italy's committing to trying to help Turkey, but I don't know how long that's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Another fleet by the French, another army for the Germans, another army for the Austrians. and an army rebuilt for the Russians after piffing their two fleets in their retreats. Probably a good decision by Liam there. Okay, in the north, we once again see the French moving very aggressively on the English, with Wales fording the English Channel into London, Mao sliding up to the Irish, and the Brest going to the English Channel. This just gives France great position on the North Sea, great position everywhere, honestly. There's a clever. Why doesn't that succeed? The convoy did Katie cleverly order by land to prevent it? Try to convoy Denmark to Belgium, but Germany just doesn't take it. Very, very cool. The army in Berlin goes to Prussia, putting some more pressure on the already vulnerable Russians. While Denmark slides it to Sweden, Sweden slides to Skagerrak, putting some pressure on Norway. So it seems that at this point, Katie Gray turned Brother Board on side, and we should see a very strong FG here.
In the East, I really like Austria's play here. Austria's turned away from Russia and has instead gotten on board with a junior partner in Italy, helping Italy into Constantinople, getting into Galicia. This is just a strong play by Austria. And so I expect Romania to go.
Yeah, and in a contrast to the game we just watched, I feel like this game is very fluid also, but it's not chaos. It's fluid with some strong positions. So this is fun.
Every move is logical. In the last game, it just seemed to be people were just greedy.
Yeah, no, you're watching truly some of the best extended deadline players you'll ever find. So here, Katie Gray, it's just some more phenomenal tactics again, though not much the English could really do about it with the fleet in Liverpool, fleet in Yorkshire, and no armies on there. So Liverpool falls, London falls. English try to convoy Norway to Edinburgh. Too little too late in terms of the defense, but it's good to get the army out of there instead of straining it in Finland or something like that. Probably just some arranged bounces in Belgium and Burgundy with moves there just designed to basically force it to make sure everyone does what they say they're going to do. Norway falls to the Germans, and we see Germany and France just in really, really good positions here. And Russia in some deep trouble as there's a fleet in Norway, army in Sweden, and an army in Livonia now.
It's looking good for Austria in the East with taking Romania. Now we'll be able to get Sevastopol probably.
I enjoyed this little move right here. Last turn, Munich and Paris bounced in Burgundy, allowing Piedmont just a free walk into Marseille. That's going to slow Katie down a little bit. Otherwise, that was a dominant position.
Kudos to the Italians for stepping in.
All right, winner of 1903. Before we see these adjustments, let's play Who Do You Like? Ed, we'll start with you. You got one player. Who do you pick to win? Or top?
Oh, man. I think I'm liking Germany.
I was going to go with Germany, but I wanted to be contrarian, and I'll say France and Katie Gray. Though I will point out that these games are not scored off of any scoring system that we're used to here. This is pure draw size scoring. So with Dixie scoring, there was a component for center count and things like that rewarded getting big. Here, a 1 center appearance in the draw is just as good as a 17 center appearance in the draw, and there is no voting yourself out of the draw either, just as draws include all survivors.
I love this Austrian position.
Oh, the Austrian position is beautiful.
I'm rooting for a fleet here in Trieste, and man, they would be off to the races. Let's see.
Yeah, would not be surprised to see an FGA draw, in a three-way, given how strong each of their positions are.
No fleet Trieste, but still really good. Karthik.
Yep, sadly no fleet Trieste, but you see an army Brest, army Budapest, an army Kiel, just all of them strengthen their position and going for the easy dots and trying to improve their position in the draw. So here is that a support from Belgium to Holland into the North Sea? Yeah, so it is. So there is some F versus G drama here, potentially with Kitty Gray trying to work with England, keeping them alive as sort of like vassal janissary, or at the very least trying to stall Brotherboard out. I think that's a very, very smart move. Brotherboard is a very dangerous player if you let him start to get momentum. So Katie trying to play this defensive position and try to hold him back, very, very smart in my opinion. And then in the West, you just see some realignment of their units, such that to try and get rid of Marseille. Also smart there. While Brother Board tries to move on to St. Petersburg. I mean, has the army in Finland now, has a fleet in Norway, and an army in Livonia. I mean, Russia is in huge, huge trouble with the G and the A there.
Yeah, it's a matter of time for Russia at this point, given the position. There was no progress made in the East, but that will change in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Another good turn for Germany. I was impressed with Brotherboard's good decision to defend Holland here and then setting up for St. Pete. I'm liking it.
Yep. Ooh, some more very, very fun, very, very clever play from the Italian. Gets them Portugal here. Has the fleet in Western. There could be a lot of pressure on Spain in the next turn as well, which could leave Iberia completely in the Italian hands. I have to wonder if Katie is trying to get the Austrians to go for a stab here or something like that, because there needs to be some sort of pressure release in order for her to get Iberia back. In the north, we see just a whole lot of red arrows as we see some fighting over Holland that really doesn't go much of anywhere, unfortunately, for anyone. North Sea holds. There's Beleaguered garrison basically there with Norway supporting Denmark in, England supporting London in, so nothing much doing.
Overall on the board, I read this as a 2010 style Central Powers alliance. It's going well for all three. Particularly bad for Russia this turn, losing St. Petersburg and Warsaw. But I gotta really like the Italian play going into Portugal. It's going to be impossible for France to dislodge it. Now France is in Western Med. This is a really bad turn for Katie, but to be honest with you, the writing's been on the wall for a while for her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she can improve her position and come back. But right now, it is looking very dangerous for her. And the army in Vienna is not going to help that cause at all. That's not great. Army in Moscow is pulled. So it's very clear at this point that Russia wants to try and hold on in Turkey. France pulls Wales. It's not going to be doing much for them anyways. And you see a fleet build in Berlin. It's going to be interesting to see what that plans to do. But it could pretend some more worries for Katie Gray if Brother Board is able to get some more fleets into position. So in spring 1905, we do see exactly what I was mentioning. We see Norway go to Norwegian. We see Finland go to Sweden. We see St. Petersburg go to Norway, setting up the convoy. I'm not sure if I like the move from Finland to Sweden that much, but maybe it went there in order to defend against some sort of retreat from North Sea or something like that to Skagerrak. But honestly, it does make it harder to both defend St. Petersburg and convoy to Edinburgh. And I think, honestly, Finland could have done any of the defensive work that you could do from Sweden with relative ease. Only explanation I can think of is maybe defending Denmark, but I mean, you want Baltic together, presumably. So in the French, Italian area, just a lot of bounces. Some good guesswork by both players to basically hold a position. This is just a really, really beautiful high-level game. Unfortunately for Katie Gray, though, with Kiel going to Ruhr, there could be some trouble in Belgium, and Katie will have to make some choices over what she wants to protect.
In the East, Warsaw takes Moscow. I think the moves in the North by Germany are de-escalation of any tension between the two of them. Austria will continue on Russia. There's English and French dots for Germany. I'm a tad surprised Naples goes to Tyrrhenian Sea. I understand the reason why, and to help finish off France, but I might have thought Ionian to get some part of Turkey.
So let's see. In the West, we see the convoy to Clyde. There's nothing the English could have done to defend it. puts Brother Board in a strong position to both go after Liverpool, which is indefensible, and Edinburgh, which is just exactly what you want to see if you are Brother Board here. You see the Italians get into Mao, you see them get into Lyon and into Marseille. Katie Gray is in big trouble here. So I think Ed may be right in terms of the Central Power Alliance being dominant here. If there is no stab by the Austrians on the Germans or on the Italians, I don't see how this does not end in a CPA. They need to get Katie needs to engender a stab here.
In the East, it's just a grind on Russia. Here goes Sevastopol. Turkey takes Khan, so Russia is out, I believe, with 3 disbands.
We've got 2 builds for Austria here. One of them's got to be Fleet Trieste this time, right?
I would hope so. I mean, that would definitely make the game more fun and would give Katie some hope of survival. And also give Austria some possible solo potential. So I think they have to do it here.
All right. And just a reminder, this is a timed game. Is that right, Karthik?
No, they are time unlimited, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think, is it time or year limited?
No, neither. I don't think there's any
neither.
limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It goes until it ends.
Got it. Awesome.
There we go. Fleet Trieste finally comes in, and I'm sure Katie did a lot of diplomatic work in order to make it happen. I'm pressing on Austria how much it improved their team's hopes of winning the tournament, potentially getting a solo. And suddenly what looks like a very dismal position for Katie is going to be much more survivable. As those fleets in Mao and Lyon are going to be forced to come back, the army in Marseille is going to be forced to come back. Portugal is likely just going to be undefended at a certain point. So this is really good for her. F Ankara, not sure if I really like that build that much. Maybe he wants to go to the Black Sea and try to make some defense there. But I also think you want to be defending Armenia here, but we'll see. So in the north, you see Norwegian going to Brents. Clearly at this point with the Austrian stab on Italy, the board clearly realizes in order to make sure that there is a draw with him included in it, he needs to turn on the Austrians really quickly to ensure the defensibility of St. Petersburg. Because it's a critical point in the stalemate line. You see Galicia going to Silesia, correctly guessed out by Brother Board. That bounce is going to be critical in ensuring that he can get his armies in position to defend the stalemate line. In the meantime, you see self-bounce by the Italians in Western, which prevents Katie from sliding into Mao. You see a lot of red arrows over Spain and Portugal as Gascon tries to support Spain and Marseille, while Portugal tries to support Marseille into Spain, basically ensuring that nothing goes.
In the East, Austria tries to advance its position. Italy's getting back, but Venice is going to be gone.
Right. Nothing can be done to defend Venice here. Marseille may have needed to come back here. In the meantime, though, you see the Italians getting Spain, while the French get Marseille, basically just making it a trade. Though the Italians will certainly be happy to have their army in Piedmont. You see the Germans walking out of Holland and the French taking it. If I had to bet, I'd bet good money that was arranged upon. Germany probably, Brother Board, looked at it and said, Katie needs builds now. In order to defend herself against the Central Powers, against AI at least, so in order to get rid of the Southern Powers on the other side of the line, he had to do that. Otherwise, you see a lot of red arrows, so nothing much doing.
Matt in Turkey makes a critical mistake. There was no reason for Constantinople to move to Smyrna at all. And that allowed Austria to take Constantinople. Really good for Austria, really bad for Turkey, and really bad for the rest of the board.
Mm-hmm. I will say there's a reason in order to do it. I think it was just poorly time to do in the fall. If I had to guess, they want to get the army into Armenia and then put the fleet into Constantinople. That's a much more defensible position, but you can't be making risk like that in the fall. It's just way too risky. But yeah, as a result, loses the fleet in Ankara, and suddenly a kind of defensible position becomes basically indefensible. Then you also see the army in Spain getting pulled, sign of goodwill to the French, and also kind of a recognition of the inevitable. You see Germany pulling Fleet Helgoland, just not really useful for much anymore, so no reason not to. Yeah, so you see sort of like, the board aligning to stop the Austrian runaway threat.
Third Austrian fleet.
Third Austrian fleet, you love to see it.
Yeah, you get 3 fleets as Austria, you're doing all right.
Yep, the solar run is real.
And Katie Gray building again. There's some life for France.
Indeed.
I don't think there's a solo.
No, I don't think there is. I think Katie Gray will defend against it, but Austria's going to make a real earnest attempt to do so, which probably saved Katie's life.
Okay.
Ooh, now that's spicy. So the Italian fleet in the Mid-Atlantic goes to North Atlantic. French correctly, see that as a possibility, so they send English to Irish. London managed to make it into the North Sea. Presumably the plan there would be for Germany to support the French in, though now may possibly cut it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. In the meantime, Brest slides into the Mid-Atlantic, which means that Portugal is guaranteed. And actually, Spain is guaranteed as well, because with Gascony supporting Marseille to Spain, there is nothing that the Italians can do to stop that either. So Katie should be going up 2 here, potentially, but down 1 because of loss of Liverpool. But could go up 2 if they get back into Edinburgh. So great turn for Katie. Germany, on the other hand, managed to put themselves back in St. Petersburg, which will be permanently defensible now with the fleet in Rensselaer, and managed to support themselves into Silesia, delaying the onslaught of armies onto the Sammy line, which should help Germany out a lot in their defense there. So with Germany getting a build, most likely putting it in either Kiel or Berlin, they should be in a good position to hold the line once Denmark slips into Baltic.
Well, I'm kind of tired of saying it, but it's another great turn for Austria. Has 3 armies on the line, can take Silesia in the fall, will take Smyrna in the fall, and has pressure on Italy. And I don't know with the support if that was intentional or not, if Turkey's a janissary for Austria right now with the fleet Ionian. Curious to see.
I think so. I think at this point they realize, with the Italians basically surrendering ports like Iberia, that Italy could be cuttable. So I think we are going to see the reduction now to the FGA draw I mentioned potentially happening at the beginning or in the middle of the game. So let's see it.
Turkey, you're saying I'm helping out Austria?
Yeah, you're just saying screw you to Italy, basically.
Yeah.
All right, so the army, actually in Liverpool actually goes to Edinburgh, while the Italian fleet slides to Norwegian, which is interesting. If the Austrians had gone Moscow to Livonia, there was actual danger then of St. Petersburg being vulnerable because the Norwegian could cut it, which would make a solo a really real possibility. Instead, Mao slides to Western instead of taking either Portugal or Spain. Potentially trying to keep Italy on side, stall the advances of the Austrian, and then just realizing, hey, I can take these dots at any time in the future. No need to antagonize the Italians yet. Unfortunately for Germany, actually, no, not too bad. This is the fall, so they will get 2 builds, and they will be able to build in both Kiel and Berlin. But Silesia is popped here, while Denmark slides into Baltic.
Yeah, I mean, I like the tactics, obviously, of moving Moscow to Warsaw to prevent a retreat, a forward retreat from Germany into Warsaw. The line's locked, on Munich right now, and it's just a matter of how many centers Austria is going to be able to take off of Italy and whether he'll leave Turkey on 1.
Right. I see there being almost 0 chance, given it's a draw size system, of Ankara being left alive. But
I like the risk that we saw Germany make, Brother Board here, because I think they correctly saw that Austria would have to cover Warsaw. So that was smart.
So, Karthik, his draw includes all survivors?
Yeah, draw includes all survivors.
So, obviously, the goal is to eliminate survivors.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry. I kept it obvious. What can I say?
No. That's a good way. That's very important to point out. Yes, the goal here, which is foreign to a lot of pure face-to-face players. Your job is to get rid of everyone who isn't you. In terms of getting the draw down as small as possible, 2-way draw, 3-way draw. So here in the West, we finally see the turn on to Italy that I expected last turn. I think, everyone kind of came to an agreement on how this game was going to end. Italy is definitely on the chopping block with Gascony supporting Marseille to Spain, Burgundy going to Marseille, and all the armies kind of sliding down into position. Here you see a double bounce in North Atlantic and Clyde, basically making sure that Norwegian can't do anything too funky. But Norwegian does slide into Barents, while there is an army in Livonia ready to have some fun. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Norwegian taps Norway. That could create a headache for people involved, especially if they can find a way to get Austria-Tunis if Italy wants to throw here. So if Italy wants to, there is a way for a solo to happen.
So we'll pause here. Ed, are we going to see a solo?
I don't think we're going to see a solo, but there's obviously the potential for it. St. Petersburg could go. There's a lot that could happen.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come down to Tunis.
Oh man, so Barents is finally piffed at great cost to St. Petersburg. It was just a hard guess. I mean, he could have either had Baltic tap Livonia or try to do mutual support where St. Petersburg gets supported into Livonia. You have a standoff with the Moscow supports Livonia to St. Petersburg. Instead, Brother Board chooses to play the time game, I guess, and say, if I send Baltic to Bothnia, can I force Austria out of St. Petersburg before the Italians manage to give Austria Norway? With the Austrians in North Africa, that is not a guess I would really want to take. If Tunis wants, if the Italians want to throw, the game is over. It's going to be very interesting to see what we have happen here.
I think Peter McNamara is saying that St. Petersburg can be taken back, right? Because Russia built in Moscow, but there's still 4 units on St. Petersburg than 3.
Right. Yes, they can force St. Petersburg quickly enough. Right.
It's risky.
But yeah, I want to call attention to one order by Katie Gray having West go to Tunis. That bounce was crucial to save the game right there. If she doesn't order that, it's game over.
Yeah. I'll just point out Aiden.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you get the best extended deadline players in the game, you're going to see some beautiful tactics.
Yeah. Love it. All right. +5 for Austria. Gotta love it. I assume we're going to see Germany disbanding in Eddie.
Yeah, the army doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So.
And what does the West need for France to build another army?
It doesn't really matter. I build another fleet because why not? But with Mao sliding down to Portugal, and then Brest sliding into you do want the fleet. With Brest sliding to Mao, you should have the line very, very easily locked up there. Tunis can fall now because St. Petersburg is guaranteed to be taken back and held forever.
The armies are all bottled up. Yep, there we go.
Yep, there you go. F Brest. Cool. Line is set. You have the 6 units you need necessary. They actually have 7 just for style points. But actually, no, this allows Burgundy to support hold Munich, create the line that way. So all is well there. You have the line. Tunis is going to be taken by the Austrians to whittle the Italians out. And you'll have this FGA draw, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, relatively straightforward here. Nothing much to comment on. Good line set up. Italians try to mess with it. Nothing much they can do there. They try to convoy Tuscany to Spain with support, but just not going to happen. And Tunis is taken, which should bring this game to a close. The line is very much displayed there, so I don't see it going beyond this.
All right, and that is where it ends.
Yep.
So that's a fun game. Really, really, really good tactics. I love seeing some of the world's best all together with long deadlines to ponder and come up with the perfect set of moves, and they made some good choices.
Yep.
For me, the key was Austria's ability to be flexible and pivot out 3 times, each time exactly at the right time.
Yep. So I want to bring up, some key points, based off of how this game was played. So firstly, obviously, I want to say congrats to all. This is just truly an incredible game. This game came down, I think, to some very, very brilliant decisions by some, and then one mistake, unfortunately. So Katie Gray did an excellent job, I think, of getting the Austrians to stab the Italians. That stab and the solo run by the Austrians gave Katie all the freedom and room that she needed in order to come back into the game. Because if you remember, in 1905, 1906, she looked dead to rights. You had the Italians all over Iberia, you had them in Mao, and then suddenly, just like that, when you see the Fleet Trieste build, it's all over. And then in the West, you saw also just some really brilliant play between the FG. But what I really want to call attention to is the Italians giving up on Iberia. In a draw-size system, honestly, the Italians should just concede their homeland. I know it's something that's very, very hard to do as a diplomacy player, just give up in your home and hunker down elsewhere. But hunkering down in Iberia was a correct decision and would have almost certainly guaranteed Italy a place in the draw.
Moletzi's pointing out what I think is right. Austria giving up Khan would be malpractice, in my world. And that just enabled the potential of a solo. Not a strong potential, but that was this game probably would have ended up the same way, but not as quickly.
Right, exactly. I was going to say it didn't make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, but probably adds a year or two into the game.
All right. Well, that's our feature game for the WebDip World Cup, and really fun to see those extended deadline games. We will probably try and find a way to do that again. Next month, our feature league, we're going back to the Tour of Britain, where you'll see a familiar name at the top of the league as Michalis Camaridis is leading both the VDL and the Tour of Britain. I'm excited, looking forward to seeing those games next month. For now, though, we are going to say goodbye to Karthik and Ed, and we're going to bring back Kevin and David. Karthik and Ed, thank you so much for the broadcast.
Thank you.
How did I lose to Kevin? This is again
Tragedy.
second place.
Tragedy.
Second place again.
No, Ed's on this one. I lost the coin toss, so you get Ed and David on this one.
Oh, Ed and David?
Hey,
yeah.
I can't
let's
read.
bring on Hood.
Oh, yeah. That is what I wrote. Let's bring on Hood. All right.
Yeah, that means I just got stabbed. I got to do this with Sullivan. Crap.
Right. That's awesome. All right. So if you guys could just recap that game real quick, I'm going to pull up our next games.
And I wonder how the scoring, the draw includes all survivor scoring system affected that game versus playing it under a different system.
Well, Brother Board's written a lot, and I think he thinks similarly to you and Dave Moletsky and others that I've read, that there's only one real outcome in a diplomacy game that counts, which is a solo. Brother Board is always thinking solo, and even if it wasn't draw include all survivors, he would try and minimize the number of players left in a draw. I think that just fits his style.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a solo is by far the goal of the game, but in a tournament setting or a league setting, you do have to figure out some way to evaluate the games versus each other that don't solo, because we all know most games aren't going to. So I'm not against recognizing other results, but I am in favor of encouraging people to go for solos for sure.
Yeah, and I really like the way Austria put it. Joseph IV put it all on the line in that game and went for it. And I want to give a shout out to Blake, Brother Board, not only a lawyer, but now a Houstonian.
Really? Has he moved to Houston already?
He's moved to Houston, and we are committed to trying to start up a club or a tournament here in Houston. Which
that's exciting.
I'll tell you what, we cannot wait for that to happen. Texas has not had an organized hobby in a long time, but it has in the past. And you certainly got a lot of people there that you can use. That's great to hear.
I'll definitely come back home for that. All right, well, let's transition us in. It is time for our virtual Diplomacy League primetime game. So let's bring up our players. So for our primetime game tonight, VDL game 59 in Austria, we have Andre Janico from Lisbon. In England, we've got Aiden Lewis from North Carolina. France, Henry Merrill from Maryland. Germany, Australia's own Peter McNamara, reigning DBNI champion. Italy has Carl Ronenberg from Seattle or New York, depending on where he is at the time. Russia, we have Natty Schaefer of Masterclass fame from Salt Lake City. And in Turkey, we have VDL veteran, I believe may have played in our first or definitely first couple of VDL games ever, Stephen Hogue. David, what are you watching for in this game?
It's hard to not have your eyes go immediately to Peter McNamara. Not just from his place in the VDL, but from his experiences and successes in other tournaments and other leagues and other face-to-face events. Just quite a name. But Peter, who's been good for a very long time, facing players who have started playing virtual face-to-face, have started playing in the hobby with virtual face-to-face, and it should be an interesting matchup there. I mean, Andre Janico has been playing a lot in the last 12 months. Carl, Natty, Steven. Aiden just played at DixieCon last weekend. First time I dealt with him in virtual world. Glad to have him here. And Henry as well played. So it's just a great lineup. Cannot wait to watch how Peter either does or does not attract friends in Germany.
Ed?
Couple of comments. One, Andre Janico is totally underrated. If you've not played with him, he is fantastic tactically. He is a great diplomat. I haven't analyzed all of his games to know, why they're turning out that way, but I don't underestimate him at all. I do feel bad for him because it's probably about 2 or 3 in the morning in Portugal, when this game is going, or certainly very late at night. Aiden Lewis is a new player. I played him at DixieCon, but let's be fair, I abused him. Hopefully he will not get abused by Peter McNamara, but certainly very super nice guy. How Peter handles the West with 2 relatively new players is going to be critical. And the East has experienced players all there. It should be interesting. I'm not really rooting for Stephen Hogue since he decided to give Karthik the win last week by collapsing as Austria, but he's a hilarious and fun guy, so let's see how it goes in the East.
So the big story for me is going to be how the rest of the board handles Peter McNamara. It's always fascinating to me. Do you, as a player, choose to ally with the powerful partner that could probably out-tactic you if you get into a race, or do you try and jump on him early? And I'll be watching England, France, and Italy really, really closely.
I will say, as a new player last year, my advice to anyone listening on this stream ever is it's okay to team up with the more experienced player, even if it doesn't go your way, because you learn a lot. And it's really helpful to see how those players tackle it. Now, Peter McNamara, though, is just he's a hustler, so he may not be the guy you want to align with, but I've never played with Peter. I'd love to one day and let him step in.
This coming from Ed, as he's one of the top players in the league right now. All right, let's get to our game. All right, Ed, we'll have you lead off.
Okay, so I'll take the West since I did the East the last time. The big move here is not a lot of English-French cooperation. Sorry, as England goes to the Channel, goes to Picardy, picks up Spain. I would say we've now reached the standard German opening. It's about 90%, according to my ingrown statistics. And the English have opened up totally north, but now they got a French problem in the south.
And they've got a Russian problem in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
It could prevent them from taking Norway. We'll see. The Russian opening is interesting. Going north like that and going to Galicia and going to Black Sea looks like an AR, looks like what I call the Army Machine Alliance.
You mean Ukraine?
I mean Ukraine. You're right. Not going to Galicia. Yes, thank you. And the Turks, assuming that they've got to deal with the Russians, don't go to the Black Sea. Now maybe they do. We'll see how this goes. But it certainly looks like a different opening than we've seen tonight and that we've seen lately in VDL play, including that bounce that the AI did in Tyrolia.
So, question. Oh, didn't get my question in. I thought Peter
Ed.
might try for the North Sea.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
That was the move that Brother Board did in the last game. Got into the North Sea in the fall of 2001. But in this case, you have the English covering London with the fleet instead, and taking taking Norway with the fleet. Thank goodness for him that Natty let him do that. What could have been a good move there for the English would be to convoy to London, so that you don't have to leave North Sea. And maybe it doesn't matter here, but that is a way for people watching the stream to cover London without leaving the security of North Sea would be to do it with the convoy.
Do that, and then you get to build in London if it does bounce.
Convoying Eddie to London.
Yes, convoying Eddie to London. Thank you. A little unclear what's happening in the East, in the sense that it looks like the Turks really didn't like the fact that the Russians went in the Black Sea, but he didn't have any support for blocking him in Romania, and still moves his fleet out to the Aegean just because he's not sure what's happening with the AI. Interesting. We'll see that lots of possibilities here for 1902. There always are, but in this particular case with the Russians in the Black Sea, lots of possibilities.
Just a few comments here. I think that's just trying to put a little trickery on the board with the RT because of the fleet moving to the Aegean, but we shall see. I really hope Aiden builds an army here. Will make it much more difficult for France, and I love the discipline of Peter not taking the third build.
Builds a fleet.
Maybe trying to give himself some diplomatic play, but obviously I agree with you, Ed. An army would have been much easier to deal with. I mean, with an army, he could have destroyed the Wales army by attacking it with support and then cutting English Channel. Still can, I guess. There we go. It still can.
Excellent
just with a fleet
decision.
instead of an army.
Right. So the French army gets piffed in the west, whereas the fleet in Brest is going to be going to mid-Atlantic. The big news is Germany now is in the North Sea. England loses Norway. Aiden, you're not going to be long for this game, but I do like the bounce in Munich, Italy. Andre, taking a stab there.
Trieste, Venice has to stand out. I'm not sure the last time in modern diplomacy play that I've seen an attack on Venice this early by the Austrians. It happens.
It helps whenever you've got, it looks like Greece in Ionian also, or Austria.
Yeah, with support, right?
Mm-hmm. From the Turk. Let's see.
So do we have some kind of rat here, or do we just have...
No, we have a rat.
Juggernaut playing with their food. We have an RT playing with their food, so to speak.
Well, David, the reason you don't see that very often is in many cases that's exactly what happens. It's better for the Juggernaut than it is for Austria. But this game could be different. We'll see.
It could be.
First of all, Stephen Hoag's a pretty reliable player to rat with. He's not a shark.
He's not Kevin O'Kelly.
Right.
Or Ed Sullivan, for goodness sake.
Oh, come on. That's why I do lots of rats. I'm very
Ed
trustworthy.
Sullivan circa 2021.
Okay, so the Italians convoy back home because they've got trouble, and they got trouble in River City. And that River City is with a capital I for Ionian. Wow. This does look ratty, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Putting the Russian fleet into Romania. I mean, if all of those Russian armies now pile into Prussia, Silesia, Bohemia, then we know what we're dealing with.
I really think Steve should have put. I know why they argued against it, but he's really split his units by moving Eastern to Ionian. Would have been nice to see Greece go there, but they obviously were worried about. Well, maybe not. I think they should have moved Greece to Ionian. I don't think that was great. And I love, by the way, the win-win for Peter McNamara. He takes Belgium or he takes Edinburgh. Either way, he's going to build a unit.
Everything's coming up Peter McNamara. And, that never happens. So it's good to see. It's good to see Peter finally getting some success on the diplomacy board.
All right, we've got Henry building 2 in France. It is an interesting build to me. Ed, what are you building here? You're Henry.
He's going to build a fleet in Brest, and I think I'm looking at a rat. I think he's going to build a fleet in Marseille.
David, do you agree?
I might do Army Marseille, put it in Piedmont, and help Italy that way. But you can make an argument for either one, I think.
Got the army.
That's why David Hood is the man.
And then we got a strong statement from Natty Schaefer with that build. He's coming for Turkey, sticking with the rat.
McAllister made a good point that Russia should have been in Silesia the last turn. There was no reason for Warsaw to support it into Galicia if there's a rat going on.
Yeah, McAuliffe with all of his good points. Why isn't he playing in this game? I'd like to know.
When you've got the only solo in the league, you can afford to take the night off.
Charity is good sometimes.
I reckon. Well, let's see. The way the Italians are dealing with this is that they're going to Lyon and Tuscany. It's hard to understand what Carl's up to here, isn't it? Unless he's just going to offer to be the tip of the spear.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Well,
that is it. It's a 4-way right now. 4-way Eastern Alliance. Just what you want, David.
Yeah, I mean, that may be the only way to stop Peter McNamara is to attack him with 4 players. That's a possibility. That could be what's happening. Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of move to the west, isn't it? Just everybody going west if they can.
Yeah, Carl's going to try and hang out in Iberia and survive there, I think.
If you've tried and failed to unhinge that triple, I don't blame Carl for trying something else. You either go down fighting or you try to live somewhere else.
Yeah. I think right now the name of the game is will the East break? Because if they don't, it's not going to be good for the West.
That's true. Although at some point you don't have a lot of room to grow. It depends. It depends on how this goes. Do the Western units get in position to defend Munich fast enough? And the answer is they're sort of okay right now, right? There's Burgundy can support Munich, but but Berlin might fall. It's going to be tough.
I think Berlin falls.
Yeah, I think it does fall.
Steve Hogue is very overextended.
I mean, that was a fall turn, I guess. So we got to see what happens.
I did like, by the way, Carl disbanded Tuscany. I was wondering what he was going to do.
Well, if you're going to do this, you might as well get rid of that army. It's not doing you any good in your puppet role.
Right.
After he put the Austrians in Piedmont, he didn't need the support, but he put it in there just in case. All right, so that was a positional year, not a center year. So let's see what the position now looks like. Steve, what you doing there? What you doing, Steve? Hey, Andre, what you doing? And they may just be killing that fleet. I don't know. Well, no, the fleet went to Sev retreated. So this was not what Natty was expecting.
Natty just got jacked.
It is hard to make any triple work for a long period of time. It's not impossible because Ed Sullivan can do it, but it is hard. It is hard to make them work a lot.
Well, it was a quadruple, but it's now a double because Austria and Turkey are going to wipe out Rome and Naples. This is good for the the AT, I don't know if Bulgaria supporting Romanian is the best move for Steve, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's true, McCullis. The French can't do both. Of course, things may have changed now anyway, so we'll see. We'll see what that means for the Russians and everything else, because the Russians maybe could defend Munich if they make a deal with the Germans. Or not. Yeah, wow. That was really quite done. And, two quick things. I know we need to move on, but two quick things. Brian, you were talking earlier about how attacking Venice early is usually a mistake for the Austrians. Ed also said earlier that Andre Janiko is underrated and is really good. And here I think is an exception to the rule is when you got Andre Janiko who can work with Stephen Hogue to make this happen.
Yeah,
what is the miscommunication over the black? Oh, that was the Russian order I'm reading. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. The communication was, I'm the Russian fleet and I am dying. That's the
Yeah, I got it. Sorry.
The universal signal for
But hey, what a turn for Peter.
Well, the French took Edinburgh. Just noticed that. Probably because there's been a stab now that there's less of a reason for the West to work together. So now they're going to start fighting each other again.
Mm-hmm.
+2, +2, -2, -2. Wow. Nice move, Astro Turks. Just a really good move.
This is fun to see. We haven't seen a lot of these in recent play. It's always been fun. It's harder to do in an untimed game, but I like the Astro Turk in a timed game because it's more difficult for Turkey to stab.
Yeah, and to make it really count.
Yeah.
And this is exactly how you make an AT work. You get the Turks out of the Balkans entirely, so you don't have as much of a. There's still risk, of course, to the Austrians, but it's less of a risk if you do this kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know what? There's not a few there's a lot of times it doesn't work because Austrians are really worried about turkeys, and this was a good country and a good pairing for Steve to be able to show Andre the trust he needed. I'm just worried about where Steve's going to grow, and I'm sure Andre's worried that Steve's worried about where Andre's going to grow.
Well, you see, Peter is now moving against the English as well. So the FG, I guess, will try to figure out a way to knock the English out, get the centers, and then face the AT. They're sure not propping Natty up, which is one way you could have played that, would be to prop them up.
Yeah.
Oh, the English are. The English took support from the Austrians into St. Pete's. What happened? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, good news, bad news for Peter, right? The Bohemian army gets piffed, but he gets the Silesian army gets piffed, but he gets into Bohemia. But the story right now is we're looking at basically what the four-way Eastern quadruple was, except it's just with two powers. They're in the same position they were in 1903 with two colors as opposed to four.
It's pretty though. The ketchup and mustard alliance is really pretty to watch if they clear everybody else out.
Not a Chicago hot dog then.
No, there's no celery salt involved.
So Warsaw's gone, right? In 06 for sure.
Yeah, so let's pause here. Look, I think it looks most likely that we're heading for 4 surviving powers, if most likely. But who comes out on top? Who do you like to top this board? David.
It is hard for me ever to vote against Peter. I'm not saying I know Peter personally. I've met him a couple of times. He's just such a good player in a situation that's essentially even. I think the odds are mostly even on who comes out top here, so I got to give the edge to Peter just on his general experience.
Picking the player over the position.
I am.
Ed.
Well, it's hard to argue against the number one player in the world right now in my book. But if I was playing Turkey, I'd feel pretty good about my spot right now for topping this board.
Yeah, that's the one to keep your eye on, I think. Yeah. All right, let's find out how both of those players do. Winner of 1905. We've got a double army build from Peter McNamara. We've got Natty having to disband down to Warsaw. Yeah, let's keep moving on. Spring of 06.
Yeah, bye-bye Warsaw, as I think Ed said earlier. Germany doing pretty much what you would want Germany to do in this situation, getting Silesia back, realizing Bohemia is a little bit of a dead end, so he pulls back out into Munich. Otherwise, mostly just moving stuff around to see who's gonna win at the line, right?
Yeah, I think this is a very good diplomatic turn for Andre as well. He gets the Austrian fleet into Western Med. Turkey gets into Tunis, so there's no now threat on Naples. There's no threat on Greece. Turkey gets Moscow, so Moscow can get Warsaw. So this AT is still working together, and they're setting the units up in such a way to continue to work together. I think that's ultimately good for the AT.
Oh yeah, it's just very well designed. If you see there, I mean, obviously Romania could be taken or something, but it's just a very, very well designed set of units from an alliance point of view. And now they take the Mid-Atlantic.
So, yeah, that's a horrible position right now. I'm a little surprised that was that a double support on Bohemia? I mean, I don't know why they didn't. I guess he's a little worried about Steve. That's why he bounces in Romania, but could have forced on the line a bit. But
it could be that's a diplomatic thing, Ed, because you can see that Peter is not helping the French by hitting the English Channel. Now, I'm not sure what the English Channel was ordered to do. Is that hold?
I think the English Channel is moving.
Oh, it was
to
ordered
London.
to London. I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So actually, he is moving to English Channel to try to help defend the seas. Then, never mind. I just misread that. Because the French want to take that, probably build Fleet Brest.
It's curious. I wonder if Peter's making a move on.
Well, if I were the French, I would have defended Mid-Atlantic, for goodness sake, and let the Germans take London. I mean, it doesn't matter. So that's why I'm wondering what Peter's really up to here. I always wonder what Peter's up to, but I particularly wonder what Peter's up to here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he and Andre are talking. They're both very. I've heard Peter in the room. I just haven't played with him. Very logical players.
I mean, Peter's saying in the chat that he's there to help Mao, and he doesn't mean Austrian fleet Mao. And I agree, but I just don't quite get why the French just didn't do that themselves, because then now you've let the Austrians into Mao. Now, maybe it's not the end of the world because you've got a lot of fleets and the French are going to build a fleet, but it still seems a little unwieldy to me because now you got the French fleet behind the lines. Yuck. I mean, this is a fight for the line. Austrians take Spain with that fleet, as opposed to doing something like going to the Irish, which is fine. So I like taking Spain.
It's better to be in Spain, I think.
Andre's moved back though with his armies, and he's holding vis-a-vis Peter.
Yeah.
So this might be a realignment here.
I pretty much think it's a realignment. As soon as Steve probably told him he was convoying Anchor to Sèvres, my guess is, I mean, because there's no point really for Steve to be in Livonia because St. Petersburg can be defended in perpetuity. And so this move, if Andre knew about it, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just going to be a stab in the fall. No,
I don't think so. I don't think that. I mean, the stab for one center or something. I don't think Andre would have done that.
All right, you're right. I forgot about the black, by the way.
Yeah.
an interesting point in the game. Real curious to be a fly on the wall for that.
Yeah, McCullough was pointing out that I was going to, never mind. Let's keep going. Because it's mostly red there. In two ways, mostly red arrows and now mostly red units.
All right, spring of 1908. We've got Andre in with the lead with 10 centers. Peter is got 9. We know most VDL games end in 1910 to 1911 range, so we're running out of time. Who's got the edge between Peter and Andre?
I think Andre has it. If Peter goes against France, it's only going to help Austria.
Well, where does Andre go here?
I think it's going to draw soon.
Okay. Because I don't see Andre trying to move backwards and take Turkish stuff.
No.
So, now, there's some commentators are making some points in the chat about how they could have taken Marseille instead of Spain, which is probably true. It's hard to know how much difference that would have made to have that fleet, retreating to the Irish or whatever, but it could have made some difference.
Still playing.
Taking Marseille now, though. I mean, the fleet gets piffed, but taking Marseille now with the army.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a pretty defensible line from both sides, doesn't it?
It does. Oh, oh, that must have been arranged.
I think it's arranged because the
Roman
Greece. Yeah, I think that's arranged. Not sure it's arranged, but I think it's arranged.
I think it draws.
There's what you want. Because that fleet is anti-Turkish.
Yeah.
The Austrian fleet's got to be anti-Turkish. Or at least try to make somebody in the West think so. Maybe that was a diplomatic play. Because he's just holding a lot now.
Gotta be negotiating for draws here.
Yes, I think that's right. I think the fleet build was to either get somebody in the West to stab each other, or to make Steve think that he couldn't really stab because now there's an Austrian fleet to worry about.
I think the real argument here is Steve wants to pressure Andre to give up a center so he gets a shared top. And I don't think Andre's going to want to do that.
Well, Peter's in the equation here. And Peter's got that guy sitting in England. He could take something.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sitting around waiting for time to run out. Take that last thought on the last turn. Ew, man, this is interesting. Who's vetoing these draws?
Yeah.
There's some drama in that room, I bet. I can't wait.
There we go.
There it is.
I think that makes sense, honestly. And great way to go, Andre. I had given the nod to Peter here. Peter could have had 10 by taking a French unit, but that probably would have killed the position unless Henry was fine with it or something. Way to go, Andre Jonico. Very well played. Well played from Steve Hoag's point of view. Peter, of course, played well. Henry played. All of them played well, but Andre really put himself in such a good position.
Really
an
happy
example of how I'm sorry, Ed. An example of how an AT can really work.
Really happy Andre got a board top. It's long overdue, and I'm glad to see his ranking go up, deservedly so.
Awesome. Well, that was another really fun game, and that brings our coverage of League Night VDL games to a conclusion. Let's move on to let's wrap this up. Let's transition us over. Ooh, did that wrong. Here we go. All right. So we're now in our after action phase, and we are going to pull up one last thing here. So I guess I'm going to bring in Kevin. Welcome. Karthik. Gang's all here. we had some really fun games tonight. I think I'll just start out. What was your overall feel? Ed, we'll get you first. What are your thoughts on the games we saw? Any storylines that you liked? What did we see?
Well, I'm gonna have to say that I didn't see the first game, but I enjoyed the VDL game that Karthik and David covered. I really liked the Web Dip World Cup game. To me, that was the best tactical game I've seen tonight, or frankly, in a long time. Go back and look at the tactics if you're a newer player or even a not newer player. And that last game I just thought was good to have a new name be on top. And I'm also happy for Steve Hogue, who got a good result by being the good Alliance player that he is and not getting Karthik this time.
Well, I mean, we have to go to Karthik now. Karthik, you called your own success about Germany. That was your main storyline. Don't go into war stories, but just overall, like, how was the night?
Sure, I thought it was a really good night. Going to the Germany point, I thought that in my case, we were able to leave, that no man's land undefended, so I did well and was able to grow. In Peter's case, it turns out there was only one person who can survive if you're massed along the stalemate line. That's Peter McNamara, though that's something that only a true pro like he could do. I thought the Web Dip game, as Ed mentioned, was truly just a masterclass in strategy, tactics. Honestly, the best game I think I've seen ever since I started watching DBN. Honestly, it was a true pleasure to watch it. I'm sad I didn't look at it earlier. I'm truly impressed by how good that game is.
Marcus Zolstra sent that over, recommended it, and really glad we get to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
David?
Yeah, I think just to start with that game for a minute, I think that game really was affected by the fact that it was under a draw include all survivors scenario. And that doesn't mean that it was all that different from a game played under a different system, because Austria was still would have gone for the solo, I think, under any system. But I'm talking about the whittling of the smaller powers out in the mid game, or the attempt to do so was really affected by that. That's because good players adapt to whatever the scoring system that you're playing is. Good players adapt to it. They don't complain about it. And I think that's exactly the right way to play, because, these games were played under different systems tonight, and yet we saw a lot of fun play. Not every game was as fluid as that second VDL game was. That last game was not quite as fluid, but was a very interesting stalemate line fight between two alliances. So we saw a lot of variety tonight. I enjoyed myself watching it.
Did you hear that, Moletsky? Good players don't complain about scoring systems.
And Kevin, what were your impressions?
Yeah, the dynamism was better. It kind of going back to that poll question that we had earlier on about solos in VDL. There was a little progress tonight, I'll say. Karthik got close, but no cigar. Picking up the German, I still don't like that. You knew that going in. We gotta cut him out of the next one. But there was play. There was room. The alliances were more fluid. The first game was, but two of the three were really enjoyable to watch. So heading into the after the first third of the season, I'm looking forward to some more open games as we go forward.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give you guys a quick break, and we have a special guest who's going to join this stream. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and we're going to do a quick interview with our board topper, Andre Janico. Andre, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Congratulations on your board top.
Thank you. It was a really fun game.
Andre, I've been watching your games for at least a year now, I believe, and I've always admired the way that I feel like you're a very patient player, that you're able to show a lot of restraint at smart times and choose to put on the gas when you need to. So I thought tonight was a really good example of that.
It's a really tense alliance, the AT. It's really difficult to pull it off, but Steven always was there to help understand how we could make this work, and we did it. I think it was really interesting one.
So you said it was tense, and I know personally when I've done ATs, they can be extremely tense. Was there a moment of the game where you just were doubting your decision?
Definitely. So there was some moves that I didn't tell Steven about. So when I moved my armies up to Bulgaria to make that pressure on Bulgaria, it was specifically made in order to make Steven understand that I didn't want him to stab me, but I also didn't want to stab him. But would I make it again? I don't know. That's always very, very tense move. And also, of course, the fleet build in the end. It's also those kind of moves already on the part of the discussion of on how we are going to let's say distribute the center counts, right? So,
do you remember what year that was, like, roughly?
For pushing on Bulgaria, not exactly. I can try to get that.
Yeah. Pull it up. Do you
Let's
remember if it
see.
was early or?
No, it was about, let's see, 06, sometime in 06. Let's try to see.
Oh, like maybe around
No,
here.
07.
Yeah.
Spring 07. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like the tensest moment for you.
Yeah, and in all this time, so Peter McNamara was also talking, and we were discussing where could we grow, where could be the possibilities here, and he always planted the seed on let's say covering my back, and it was really important to have that discussions and understanding where I could grow and where I could not, and understanding that Peter had their line correctly defined and where should I go after that.
Was there a moment where you felt like you were at risk?
Well, before this move, I was really always in big tension because there was the convoy into Romania and moving into Bulgaria from Con. And that would just put a very strong Turkish line on me. So that was the more tense moment for me, I guess.
And what would you say, was there a decision that you made in this game that you feel like was the secret to your success, that helped you win this game?
I think it was the move on Italy. It was a really it was really in 02, and it was a decision made really at the end of the time. So by the end of that discussion, of that diplomacy phase, I was supporting. Actually, I was supporting the Italian fleet from Ionian into Aegean. And then I went into a room with Steven, and then I understood that I couldn't bring Natty to jump on Steven. So okay, so this won't be a fast decision to take out Steven and Turkey. So let's do something different. And so it was like 1 minute till the end. I just changed the support, and I supported Aegean into Ionian, and I went into Venice. And it was 1 minute decision, but it after that it made completely sense.
What was your emotional state while you were putting that order in?
Well, I was not sweating, but almost.
Yeah, that feeling like when you're making that last second change of strategy and your heart's like racing and you watch for those orders to see if it works. It's so exciting. That's one of my favorite parts of diplomacy. So.
Yeah, that's one of those things that virtual face-to-face, and I'm not yet played on a tournament scene on a face-to-face, and I'm eager to do it whenever it's possible. This virtual face-to-face learned a lot with these kind of tense moments, but really fun ones.
Well, Andre, congratulations. Really happy to see your success. That was an excellent demonstration of how to make a AT work. You and Steven did a great job, and I had a blast watching. Thanks for playing and letting us commentate that game.
It was really fun. Thank you for your stream.
Have a good one. All right, with that, we are going to pretty much wrap up. But before we do, let's take a look at our standings. Let me go ahead and pull those up. Almost there. All right. So here we see our standings at the end of today's games. We are basically 1/3 of the way through our season. So we've got in first place, McAllis took the night off, didn't need to play, did fine. Morgante holds on to second, and Ben Kelman closed that gap. Let's see, I think a lot of our top 10 stayed the same. I'm going to bring on Kevin and Karthik and see if they've got any other thoughts. Karthik, Ed, anything stand out on these standings for tonight?
I'd say Ben solidified his place in third, getting a few more points with his game today, with the great performance in Italy to move to 73. Andre Janico hops into the top 7 with a great performance on the final board, the primetime board for the night, hitting 10 centers as Austria, getting that 1 center top over Peter, getting a bunch of points for that. Alex Nagel played today, put up some good numbers. I placed him in 8th, just outside of the top 7. Another good result for him will put him in a great place to succeed.
Yep. And then looking at positions 11 to 20 real quick, we do see a little bit of movement in here. Brandon Fogel took the night off, dropped down to 19th. Sorry, Kevin. That was your prediction, but he's got games for the future, I think you were commenting on.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are good.
Yeah. The biggest takeaway on that second round is another new face jumped in. I know he can't pat his own back, but Karthik, again, with only 1 game played at this point. So he and Peter McNamara got his second game, and I'm still sticking with my weasels of Brandon and Sabi. So there's the top 7. Better watch out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are doing this again in July, and look forward to more VDL games. Looking forward to our Tour of Britain coverage. Just a reminder, you can check out Game Day Live for the Boston Massacre. If you've not already signed up, we do have links in our show notes. So you can go to the description of the show, find links to all of the games that we talked about. If you're interested in playing in League Night, then you can sign up there. And do sign up. It's so much fun to play. We love watching these games, being able to comment or commentate on them. Kevin, Karthik, thank you for joining us. Let you close out. Any final thoughts you'd like to say before we leave?
Please like the video.
Yeah, please like the video.
And subscribe, please.
And also, try to get involved in different formats of diplomacy than you normally play. If you're an online player, play face-to-face. If you're a face-to-face player, play online extended deadline. Play gunboat, play speedboat. They're all different forms of diplomacy, and all of them are just a bunch of fun to play. And, you miss out on a lot of great games if you don't play them all, as we saw with the What Did game today.
All right. Well, that's it. As Kevin said, if you haven't done so already, please like the video. Please subscribe to our channel. Please tell your friends if you think this would be something they'd be interested in. Our mission here at DBN is to share the game of diplomacy we love in all the formats that we can. And thank you all for watching. Really appreciate having you. Thank you for chat. That's one of the highlights of doing this show. I always go back and rewatch the broadcast just to watch all the chat that I couldn't keep up with during the broadcast. So thank you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Let's transition us out.